Education. Thank you for all joining tonight. We have right now over 300 people who have joined this Zoom meeting. So thank you for spending time with us. We only have one topic tonight to cover, and that is our reentry plan. So could I first have a motion to return to public session?
So moved.
Second.
We are back in session. Could we please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, let's get started. As we prepare to reopen schools during these unprecedented times, we know that change against a backdrop of unknowns is the only constant. As board president, I can assure you that we are planning for any and all of the different scenarios that might occur. And that in and of itself requires us to be ready, nimble, and flexible to carry out whichever plan we deem is best suited and most appropriate for our district. Developing a reentry plan for our 6 schools based on information that was obtained from multiple sources has been no small feat. Dr. Varley led a team of administrators, principals, staff, parents who worked tirelessly over the last several weeks, and together they developed a well thought out plan that's both prudent and pragmatic. The entire team deserves our appreciation, gratitude, and heartfelt thanks for working quickly and collaboratively in the best interests of the students, the staff, and the larger Berkeley Heights community. Our plan tonight is titled Re-Entry to a New Normal. The fact that we are using the word re-entry because students were last in school on March 13th and new normal because nothing about the last 4 months has been normal speaks volumes about why we decided to have this board meeting tonight, share information with the community, and allow parents to ask questions. Admittedly, there is no perfect model. We believe that our recommended plan tonight is optimal for our students academically, emotionally, socially, and behaviorally. As you'll hear in our guiding principles, our goal is to deliver a first-class learning plan while taking into account the overall health of all stakeholders, which includes mitigating the risk of COVID-19. Parents will obviously have a say in this important matter. They'll have a choice to make based on what they believe works best for their own individual family. Decisions have the potential to differ from one family to the next. Therefore, it goes without saying that united we stand and divided we fall. Let's all grant each other some extra grace and understanding during this time and support each other as best as we can, regardless of what decisions parents make. To all of our educators, the first quarter of this year, and maybe longer, starts a new chapter in public education. There is a significant learning curve that our students, teachers, and administrators will be navigating yet again. There is no doubt you will rise to the occasion in September, just as you did in March when we transitioned to remote learning. Let's stand up for our educators and other personnel and give everyone the opportunity to adjust so they can ultimately excel in this new normal. Educating your children in a safe environment has always been and will continue to be our #1 priority. We realize that families are dealing with a number of challenges, including employment concerns, childcare, and the shared focus on ensuring that students' educational, social, and emotional needs are met. Furthermore, we're fully aware that an extended closure of our schools, including separation from treasured teachers and friends, has impacted our students. As you'll hear tonight, we're securing resources to prioritize students' social and emotional needs during both the crisis and beyond. As I said at the beginning, these are unprecedented times. The continued need for planning, flexibility, and contingencies is undeniably critical. Berkeley Heights is a strong community committed to our children and to each other. We'll continue to support one another because Berkeley Heights knows that coming together is the beginning, keeping together is progress, and working together is success. Thank you, Henry Ford. And if we've learned anything from the past 4 months, is that guidance and decisions change frequently and oftentimes on short notice. We're prepared to act swiftly and speedily, like we did when we closed schools in advance of the governor's shutdown, to make sure that we can pivot and deliver a rigorous education while maintaining the safety of our entire school ecosystem. Our school system as a whole is being presented with a multifaceted set of knowns and unknowns. No worries, I have seen firsthand what's possible when a community like ours comes together. The results are unprecedented with far-reaching outcomes and unsurpassed achievements. I expect the 2021 school year to be another unique year with new levels of success. We, as a team, will continue our hard work planning while the community enjoys the remainder of its summer. Your help, support, and partnership throughout this journey are certainly needed and very much appreciated. Thank you. With that, we'll move to the only item we have on the agenda, which is the report of the superintendent. Dr. Varley, the floor is yours.
Good evening. Thank you, Doug. I want to add my own thank yous to those that Doug has already given. In particular, I want to thank all of the members of the BHEA who volunteered their time to help us develop plans for the opening of school this coming year. The BHEA was in the very initial planning and worked with us diligently. It is a testament to the dedication and professionalism of our staff that over 40 of our 10-month employees have freely given their time, talent, and invaluable insights across all facets of the planning process. In addition, I have to recognize the administrative team for all of their hard work in developing multiple reopening strategies, which have often had to undergo multiple revisions as new state directives have come into play. There are over 600 school districts in the state of New Jersey developing reopening plans for the fall of 2020. There is not a single district in the state of New Jersey that has developed a plan that makes all of their parents, teachers, and students happy. As you will see during the presentation, the Berkeley Heights Public Schools reopening plan is rooted in the New Jersey Department of Education reopening guidelines and the recommendation of various international, national, and state medical authorities. It is also in line with many other local New Jersey districts' reopening plans. I want to assure everyone that in addition to being in constant communication with the state and county, I also meet with the local health department on a near daily basis. And I am as well versed as I can be on the current state of the COVID-19 crisis. I have every respect for the rights of individual parents to take actions that they believe are in the best interests of their children. However, it is my responsibility to take actions for the health and safety of students and staff of the Berkeley Heights Public Schools while providing the best possible education for our students. I am making my recommendations to the Board of Education for the reopening of school based on the belief that giving students the most normal educational experience possible is the best solution. This belief is rooted in a lifetime of professional experience. At the heart of education are the relationships between teachers and students. All of us know them, the teachers we connected to who made a difference in our lives. These critical connections are devastated in remote learning. Our students and teachers need those in-person connections. My recommendation is also informed by health considerations. Most of these are related to COVID-19, and the recommendation takes this into account with numerous health and safety protocols, procedures, and remediations. But there are also other less obvious and sometimes hidden health and safety concerns that drive my recommendation for as normal an educational experience as possible. The stress and mental health of our students and families. There are areas with a very real impact that have been frequently underreported in the face of the pandemic. Our students desperately need the interaction and socialization that school provides. Everyone, students, teachers, and families, needs the structure of in-person in-building school. My recommendation provides a balance between the health and safety of students and staff in the face of COVID-19 and my firm conviction that everyone needs as normal a schedule as possible within those parameters. Thank you. And now I will share my screen for our re-entry plan.
Melissa, as you're doing that, I see a couple of questions in the chat window. Let me just outline for everybody on the call how this will work. So Melissa and her team are going to walk through the plan that was presented. If you haven't seen it, you'll see it on the screen. It's also available on the district website. Once they go through that presentation, there will be an opportunity from anybody from the public who wants to ask a question. We'll be using the raise your hand functionality, which I will remind people of. So we'll have the presentation, and then after that will be an opportunity for the public to speak.
Okay. So our plan is called, as Mr. Reinstein talked about, the re-entry to a new normal. We are to provide a safe and healthy environment. This is our district mission, our COVID district mission, provide a safe and healthy environment for the staff and students of Berkeley Heights and Mountainside, while also caring for their social and emotional well-being and providing a rigorous education. We looked at the New Jersey Road Back Restart and Recovery Plan, which the governor had a team create. It states we must start school in person. We do not have an option to do fully remote. So absent a shift in public health data, school buildings will open in some capacity for in-person instruction and operations in the fall. This guidance leaves the interpretation open as to how schools will open. We also followed the guidance of the American Academy of Pediatrics. I want to be clear here, we can never eliminate the risk of COVID-19. There is no single action we can do, but we can mitigate the risk. The AAP strongly advocates that all policy considerations for the coming school year should start with the goal of having students physically present in school. Our process, as I talked about earlier, we involved the BHEA before we even got started with our planning. We created committees. As you can see the list of committees here, there's quite a few. I am still want to be sure I am so grateful for the teachers, counselors, nurses, custodians, and admin team who involved them, and the board, as well as parents who involved themselves in the process. Our committees met, and then they made recommendations, and the district administration and the board makes decisions. We release the plan to the public, and the Board of Health provides final approval. We had 4 guiding principles: communication, health and safety, instruction, and access to learning. And one thing we know as educators is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Students have to feel safe before they can learn. So we want to make sure that is something that we have hit home. We also want to have strong instruction and equitable access to learning. Plan A, with the exception of pre-K and half-day kindergarten, all students will report to school each day. The school will begin at the normal time but end earlier. There will be no lunch served at school. We cannot possibly allow students to sit in a large room together without masks. Students will be given time to go outside and take mask breaks. We will have hand sanitizer at the entrance of the building, so when they go out, they will take care of their hands, and when they come back in, they will take care of their hands. All students and staff will be required to wear face coverings. Example given, masks, unless they have a medically documented respiratory or other condition, and then they will be provided a face shield. Students will be socially distanced when possible, and when not possible, they will wear a mask. The teachers will be socially distanced from the students when possible. In grades 6 through 12, the schedule will likely entail a 4-period day to reduce transition times. Teachers will provide live interaction for those electing remote learning. In grades 1 through 5, core content areas will be prioritized in terms of in-person instruction. Our full-day kindergarten pilot and our first grade will run 4 hours a day for 5 days per week. We will refund half the cost of full-day kindergarten. For our half-day kindergarten, 4-hour schedule with 2 groups alternating every 3 days. And then our pre-K program will meet 3.5 hours on 2 days a week. And you can see how that will work there. This is posted on our website as well if you need more information. So I'm going to let Mr. McKinney talk now about schedules for the next couple of slides.
Good evening. As Dr. Varley already shared, the district committees have worked hard to collaborate and develop the best plans for the students of Berkeley Heights Public Schools within the constraints created by the guidance provided to us by the New Jersey Department of Education and numerous health agencies. Our primary driving goal is to maximize district resources to provide the highest quality instruction possible while layering as many of the recommended risk mitigating strategies to keep our students and staff as safe as possible during this pandemic. The Plan A schedule takes into consideration many of these strategies, included but not limited to the elimination of lunch period and close interactions in an indoor space without masks, putting in place social distance measures inside of classrooms, the use of masks by students and staff throughout the school day, the reduction of outside visitors into our schools, frequent cleaning during and after school hours, the creation of one-way hallways and or staggered transitions in grades 6 through 12, and a reduction of student movement in our K-5 settings. As you heard earlier, Plan A includes a 4-hour day at all levels with start time staggered in our traditional manner. Following time for student travel home and lunch, students will have remote access to their teachers for conferencing, interventions, small group, or individual instruction. On the next slide, we will see a draft of the elementary schedules, and these general principles will apply to the first grade at Mary Kay McMillan School as well. This schedule has been drafted to support consistency of instruction while at the same time maximizing flexibility for the classroom teachers to adapt to the individual student needs in the classroom. You will notice that we focus our instruction on the core content areas, but we have also built in time to develop our classroom communities and integrate social emotional learning. On the next slide of the elementary schedule, you will see reduced student interactions and transitions in the hallways, and therefore our related arts classes will take place within the student homerooms. So those teachers will move to our students as opposed to our students moving to the art room or the media center. On the slide, you will also notice additional structures put in place to provide time and access to district interventionists and related services. Having the time to plan for this new reality over the summer will allow us to maximize our staff in the delivery of these services for our students. And finally, we've built in time for mask breaks, snacks, and outdoor recesses as weather allows during the school day. As we move to the high school, or to the 6-12 schedule, we have developed a plan that allows students to have direct contact with all of their teachers on a daily basis. This slide may look a little slightly confusing or overwhelming, but the most important takeaways are that the morning and afternoon classes will swap each day, while at the same time we will rotate our periods as we do traditionally in our normal schedule so that our instructional times move within our schedule. The morning session will include 4 longer blocks as compared to our normal 6 periods to provide more time for student engagement, collaborative activities, small group instruction, classroom assessment, and of course, teacher feedback. The afternoon session will provide students access to their teachers for questioning, check-ins, reteaching, and extra help within a structured schedule to ensure access for all students and staff members. As a final note, we have built these schedules to allow for a seamless transition between scenarios in the event of a change made by the state or if public health requires us to move to a remote learning environment.
So now, Ms. Vellazola, if you will take facility safety.
Yes, I want to thank the Facilities Committee. They did a very thorough job of considering all of the unknowns and all of the things that we will have to face to make the school safe and healthy for both our students and our staff. The custodian and maintenance staff will follow a stringent facilities cleaning and sanitizing checklist daily. They have all had training in both sanitizing and cleaning for COVID, and they will have a follow-up training later this month or early in August. They have been working to clear out the extra materials and fabric furnishings from the classroom. This allows them to create more space for social distancing. We will use every effort to keep air circulation as high as possible in the classrooms. This includes using the univents and opening the windows. Beginning early in July, we started upgrading our HVAC fans, rooftop fans. We've replaced them, we've made repairs to them, and this work is continuing. This will help the airflow in the schools. Each principal is working on hallway signage and markings. This will include one-way signs, upstairs ways, downstairs ways, but making changes in their buildings to improve flow through the buildings and reduce contact between students. We've installed plexiglass dividers where appropriate, and we will continue to do this. Where appropriate, we'll have outdoor classes and recess. Lunch, as mentioned before, will not be served, but we will have a grab and go option in each school for both students and staff. Parents will need to submit an assurance that their children do not have a fever above 100.4, and staff will be required to do the same thing. Each day we'll have instructional reminders about hand washing, social distancing, mask wearing, sneezing, coughing, etc. This will be up to the teachers. We'll also have signs in the classrooms reminding people of the importance of this. Also hand washing. We'll have hand sanitizers throughout the school. Students won't be using lockers. This will help with social distancing. Face masks or face shields will be required by all students and staff. All in-person meetings of two or more people will be done remotely. We're going to limit the transitions outside of the classroom. As Mr. McKinney said, the related arts teachers will go into the classroom, so we're limiting the hallway interaction of the students. In each classroom, we'll have residential cleaners for the faculty and the staff to use. And we're requiring staff and students to quarantine if they have been in a hotspot unless they present a negative COVID-19 test. And we will work with the Department of Health to do contact tracing. Some of our nursing staff have been trained in contact tracing. The Transportation Committee came up with these recommendations for busing to school. All students and drivers will wear masks. The windows will be open to improve the airflow on the buses. We have eliminated courtesy and subscription busing. This will allow fewer students on the buses and more room for the students who are on the buses to space out. We are continuing with the hazardous busing. The buses will be cleaned daily, and in between routes, buses will be loaded from the back to the front when they get on and unloaded from the front to the back to help keep students apart. This is a protocol for our district drivers to follow, and it's also the protocol that the vendors are following who also bus our students.
So moving forward with our Plan B, our contingency plans, we had Plan B, which consists of all of Plan A with the following changes: having 50% of the students in attendance on any given day. We would alternate weeks with half the student population present at a time. 1 week, your child will be in school for 5 days for a 4-hour schedule, and then next week they would be learning remotely. The student body would be split according to their first letter of their last name so that siblings throughout the district remain on the same schedule. Students will be socially distanced, and students who are on the off weeks will be learning virtually through some type of live interaction. Plan C, students will receive full virtual instruction, and each school will have a set schedule, and teachers and students will follow that schedule with live interaction taking place each day. We are not allowed at this time to fully do Plan C. We must have some type of in-person instruction. There may be special circumstances in which some students may report to school depending on the nature of the executive order or the district situation. Plan C would only be implemented upon a change in public health data as determined by the governor and the NJDOE or a major outbreak in Berkeley Heights. For parental choice, a parent may choose to send their child remotely, but they must notify the district by August 17th. Forms will be coming soon. I hope the forms will go out by Tuesday of next week. Remote students will not be allowed to return to in-person instruction until the end of a marking period. And we are awaiting guidance from the Department of Education as to whether remote students may participate in in-person extracurricular activities such as sports. Out of 86% of parents responded to the survey, 2,200 parents responded in 48 hours. So that was quite a great turnout. We did go through and remove the multiple responses by certain names, and then the ones that were fake names, we removed those as well. So out of the real survey results, 68% of our families stated that they would send their children back to school with Plan A. And the second bullet gets a little bit confusing. Of the 32% who would not send their child to school, 40% of that 42% of families said that no matter what in-person option we presented, they would not choose that option. So I'm going to turn it back over to Mr. McKinney to discuss special education and related services.
Thank you. As part of all of our planning and collaboration, Mrs. Gardner and Mr. Moore and her committees have worked within each of these scenarios to make sure that they are constructed to meet the needs of all students, including students who participate in special education programs. This committee has reviewed all of the possible plans and has taken the initial steps of planning for providing student services within each of the scheduled options. Based upon the decision and the adopted plan and additional guidance provided by executive orders and the New Jersey Department of Education, some students may receive extended programmings in the afternoon. Related services will be provided using remote and in-person formats if in-person instruction is permitted. District technologies will continue to be implemented to allow for meetings and conferencing to take place with the necessary professional staff, students, and of course our families. As a plan is adopted and becomes our reality, the district will implement additional safety strategies to protect students and staff while still providing individualized student services. This could include providing additional PPE as well as exploring in-house vocational experiences for our CBI program. Finally, we will keep the lines of communication open so that we can collaborate with families to address student needs and any changes that might occur in this new reality throughout the year.
I think I have Miss Nardi who is going to discuss social and emotional learning.
Yep, I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Very good. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jessica Nardi. I'm the principal from Hughes School. And Dr. Janosko and I were selected by Dr. Varley to create the social emotional reentry plans for the district. Our task was to address the social emotional learning needs of staff, students, and their families with regards to starting the school year under some very unique circumstances. We met early in July with a large group of teachers and counselors to further develop our initial ideas. We divided our task into 3 categories. You can see staff and students are addressed on this slide, and the next slide will address our parents. So regarding staff, we have already shared a staff survey earlier this week to help us identify staff needs and concerns, and we've already received numerous detailed responses. We will be working with an expert in social emotional learning in September who will use the results from the survey to create a customized virtual presentation that will help all staff be better equipped to identify and address their students' varied needs as well as managing their own self-care. We have also hired a second professional speaker with a significant amount of experience for September who will be working with the staff specifically on issues related to diversity. Another area we're focused on is to streamline the process by which we can receive additional assistance for students through our counseling department as needed. We want it to be really easy for our kiddos to receive the support that they need. And to more specifically address our students' needs, we will also be surveying them during their first week of school to help us identify their particular stressors. What we've learned is sometimes what we as adults are concerned about or what we think that our children are worried about is not actually what concerns them at all. So once we're able to determine their needs more clearly, we can then work to create a more specific and directed plan. Dr. Janosko and I are also compiling a multitude of resources that staff members can use within their regular day, in their regular lessons, to assist with the variety of social and emotional needs. And of course, the counselors will also be continuing to add resources and activities to their counseling websites and Google Classrooms as they did throughout the spring. On the next slide, we have summarized some of our actions for parents. Counselors and administrators will be sharing some social emotional learning information, specifically about preparing for re-entry as we get closer to September. And we will be providing ongoing communication throughout the year in a variety of formats, newsletters and email blasts, specifically with regards to social emotional needs. And the counselors will be updating their websites and their Google Classrooms specifically with parent resource tabs, and that they will continue to update those as the year unfolds. And as always, we encourage parents to please reach out to the schools anytime there is a concern. We know that the partnership between school and home has benefits for our students, and we want you to know that we are here to support you, particularly during these challenging times, but always, and you should never hesitate to reach out either to an administrator, a counselor, a nurse, or a teacher. So we're all in this together. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Nardi. Now, Dr. Janosko.
Good evening, everyone. So Principal Jessica Nardi and I also had the opportunity to lead a team of nurses and teachers in an effort to create a medical plan that adheres to all of the preceding organizations and guidelines. It's also important for us to recognize that many of our nurses that work in Berkeley Heights have volunteered their time throughout the course of the spring to conduct COVID-19 screenings to individuals, and some of the teaching staff on our committee also work tirelessly utilizing their skills and wisdom on the healthcare front as EMTs. All of our members still continue to work with us to make sure that our plan remains up to date and present, and making sure that we're meeting all of our medical requirements. Our first medical slide reports that all students and staff are required to practice self-health screenings daily prior to entering the school building. Additionally, staff and students are required to wear masks where social distancing cannot be maintained. Accommodations will be made, as previously mentioned, for any students or staff that are unable to wear masks. All students and staff will also be required to meet the hygiene practices that are reported by the CDC, which includes frequent hand washing, staying home when sick, covering your face when sneezing, etc. Further medical requirements include students and staff abiding by the guidelines of, if in fact you are symptomatic of COVID-19 symptoms, you are to remain home, and you are to not return unless you have obtained a medical documentation indicating that you are not positive with COVID-19 and cleared to return to school. If a student or staff member is in a class where someone has tested positive for COVID-19, all students and those staff members must quarantine and go to school remotely for 14 days. If a student or staff member is exposed to COVID-19 outside of school, they are required to notify the school as well as remain home for 14 days. An individual who tests positive for COVID-19, again, is required to submit medical documentation that includes a diagnosis, the quarantine time, and a clearance to return to school. Just so you are all aware, the school district is required to report any positive cases of COVID-19 to the New Jersey Department of Health, as well as we work in conjunction with the Department of Health to administer the contact tracing practice. And like what Mrs. Felazzolo indicated, there are myself, nursing staff, Mrs. Nardi, and various other professionals that have been trained in contact tracing.
Thank you, Dr. Janasco. I definitely want to reiterate how much I thank everyone for participating in all of these committees and taking their summertime, which is usually filled with vacations and time off and time to decompress from what was a rough school year last year to get ready for a new school year. But everyone has been working so very hard, so I want to thank you on that. We have our list of committees here, and you can see very widely represented by teaching staff, administrators, custodians, nurses, counselors, and again, more of our wonderful faculty who have spent a lot of time this summer working on this plan. So the superintendent's recommendation to the Board of Education is Plan A. And while there is no perfect model, we believe that this is the best plan for our students academically, emotionally, socially, and behaviorally. Pointing back to our guiding principles, we are striving for the optimal balance of delivering a quality learning plan while considering the overall health of stakeholders and our ability to mitigate risk for COVID-19. Consistency is an important consideration that was not overlooked in our design. Our model allows us to offer the continuity of instruction that we know is best for the children of Berkeley Heights and Mountainside. It also offers a reliable schedule that allows families to build consistent routines. Our next step would be to continue our return to school planning and obtain Department of Health and Department of Education approval. We would determine our student and staff status regarding the return. At this moment, we do not have all the answers. This plan is something that we would have probably taken an entire school year to plan, and we were given 4 weeks. So we still have a lot of unanswered questions. We need to coordinate our transportation schedules, provide more remote instruction professional development for our staff members, and continue our regular community updates. We do have a link for frequently asked questions. I do ask you before you send the principals, myself, Mr. McKinney, Ms. Belazzola, questions, if you will look on here to see if they have already been answered for you. And now I will turn it over to Mr. Reinstein.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Varley, Scott, Donna, Ashley, Jess, and all the team. This was really truly a large community effort. So that ends our presentation portion for this evening. How we'll proceed going forward is we will now open up the meeting to our citizens for a public hearing. If you have a comment or a question, use the raise your hand functionality. I will unmute you. I would prefer if you turn your video on so I could see who you are and interact with you. And we will start there. The first person that I see is Kamal Chaja. And you are on. Welcome and good evening.
Hey, Doug. Sorry, there doesn't seem to be an option to turn the video on.
No worries.
You mentioned that people may go back or have to quarantine if somebody tests positive. Totally understand that. I'm just wondering if there are any best practices for if the classroom has to go virtual, whether it's in terms of quarantine or Plan C having to be executed. Have any best practices been established? Things like teachers being live on video, having in-person instruction, having breakout rooms, encouraging children to be live on video. I know you had to pivot very quickly the first time this was done, and there wasn't really a standard. I'm just wondering if some thought has been given to what ideal virtual instruction would look like.
And Dr. Varley, why don't you talk about what we've done and what we've learned since then and what we're planning to do in the future?
So I do believe our teaching staff did a great job in our quick turnover starting in March, but we know we can always do better. And one of the things we have worked this past couple of weeks is to develop a plan on what remote instruction looks like. And we don't have all the answers right now. I can turn it over to Mr. McKinney. So he's been in the curriculum and instruction meetings more so than I have. So I can turn it over to him to speak a little bit about what he has been experiencing.
So again, I would echo what Dr. Varley said, that we don't have all the answers, and we haven't, because we haven't made a decision to go forward with one plan, or we haven't clearly established those, but we did initiate those discussions at all three levels. We divided our curriculum and instruction work between a K-5 level, a 6-8 level, and a 9-12 level, so that we were able to differentiate those best practices that are age appropriate to the students that we'll have in our classrooms. So we've begun to talk about those types of things and how, what was successful, and many of our teachers were, incredibly successful, and how can we turnkey that to the rest of the staff and make sure that we have that standard. And we've begun to delineate some of those things and those expectations for those, but it'll also require us to follow up in August and into September with, opportunities for professional development, so that we can train all those teachers to get everybody to that same level. So we've begun that work. For example, we talked about the different formats and the best ways to use Zoom conferencing. One of the things we learned is that Zoom conferencing and that direct connection between the teacher and the students and their peers is critical to being successful in a remote learning environment if we're forced to be there. We've also learned that it's not appropriate for a teacher to get in front of a Zoom conference and speak at the students for an entire class period each day. So we need to talk about the different ways that we can interact, the different ways we can collaborate, the different ways we can use the technology to break into small groups so that we can do small group instruction and assist students with guided practice. So we're well on our way to creating kind of, I think you said, standard. And I think, we are going to work with our teachers to get to that standard, but we've made a lot of progress and we'll continue to work on that through the month of August.
Great, thank you.
Great, thanks, Scott. The next person is Carolyn. Carolyn, you can unmute.
Maybe she didn't know that she had raised her hand. She might have just clicked accidentally.
Okay, we'll come back to her. The next person I see is Brianna Kagan. Brianna, welcome.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. My name is Brianna Kagan. I'm a rising senior in GL, and I'll be graduating in 2021. Before I begin, I'd like to thank you all for giving me this opportunity and other members of the community this opportunity and outlet to speak, and for your efforts to keep me, my peers, my family, and my fellow community members safe. I also want to apologize if I'm looking over to the left. It's just because I have my notes next to me.
No worries.
I'd like to start here by telling you all that as a student, I have a bias. I want to go to school. I've always said I'm good at it. I'm a cheerleader, a club president, a member of the 2020 High Honor Roll, and I participate in other extracurriculars. The absence of a typical school environment was very difficult for me. The complex and high-level classes I took were extremely difficult to understand over Zoom, while being sure to hold myself to the same academic standards that I have and my teachers have held me to during my schooling career. I want to go back to school, but to say please send us back solely based on the fact that school would be more difficult or because I like it is selfish and wrong in itself. I ask you as a Board of Education to consider sending students back to school as long as it can be done safely, while complying with all government regulations and most importantly, keeping those who are vulnerable safe from COVID-19. Students are resilient and we will come through whatever is decided with flying colors. That was proved with the class of 2020. But at the end of the day, I didn't come here to try and convince you all to let us go back into Governor Livingston or any school for that matter. I'm here to ask one thing of the Board of Education. I want a say. We've been taught throughout our entire academic journey to advocate for ourselves, and in almost every subject, how to form a grounded opinion supported by credible evidence on every topic under the sun. However, when it comes to what happens to us in our school, we're left out. While I understand that a majority of us are minors and cannot legally advocate for ourselves just quite yet, we can still voice to how we feel to those in charge. But many students still will not speak unless spoken to, as that is what's been taught to us. I understand that a parent survey was sent out to everyone in Berkeley Heights asking them about their opinion on a prospective decision for their individual child's schooling experience for the 2020-2021 school year. But the people who will be enduring this new normal and bearing a large brunt of this adjustment are somehow left out of the conversation. Yes, again, some students are too young to fully grasp what's going on right now and therefore cannot provide their thoughts. But a survey sent to students including questions such as, should we return to school? How can we make you feel most safe? Or should we return to school within limits? How can we maximize your productivity and sense of normalcy in our school environment? Is completely valid to ask the 14 through 18-year-olds who will be returning or entering Governor Livingston this fall. I promise you, if the board asks, we will respond. We have thoughts, we have opinions, we might even have solutions or ideas. You just need to ask. The Board of Education has a direct line to every single student, our district emails. Something as simple as a Google form with a few questions on our thoughts can make each student feel slightly in control of everything that has become out of their control. Mental health, especially in teenagers right now, is at an all-time low, with almost a 1,000% increase in depression and anxiety cases. When feeling out of control, I assure you, we will respond equivocally. There's a very real possibility that we do not return to school this year, or that we enter back into another lockdown mid-year. I implore the Board of Education and administration to communicate with their students and ask how they can help them get through this difficult moment in their lives in an effort to make sure your students are okay. There are 965 students that attend GL. While there isn't exactly a plethora of mental health resources at GL, the resources we have are lost to us the second we leave the building. Whether it be a favorite teacher, Mrs. Ringwood in the nurse's office, any administrator, a favorite teacher, a coach, these resources are immensely difficult to access over a screen and provide a different and in most cases lower sense of comfort than an in-person interaction. Therefore, I urge you once again to ask the students what you can do to help us in order to ensure the safety and sanctity of students in Berkeley Heights. As a student of Governor Livingston right now, I ask you to ask us. Please, we have answers. This is your opportunity as the Board of Education to show the students of Governor Livingston and even Columbia Middle School that we are more than a number, a statistic, or a test score, but that we're real people to you whose thoughts and opinion count. I urge you to adopt these practices when approving or creating a reopening plan for the 2021 school year. Again, I appreciate the time and opportunity to speak with you all. Thank you so much.
Brianna, thank you very much for speaking. I'm sure you speak on behalf of a lot of your peers.
Yes.
I'm quite sure that Dr. Varley, who hears you, and the principals will take that under advisement. We are oftentimes surveying people, and I think remember us, I'm watching some of the board members shake their heads, agreeing with you that student input is an important piece of that. And we have had a lot of input from other stakeholders, and students are an important one as well. So thank you. Leave that one with us. And having interact with many of the GL students over the years, I can certainly agree with you. There's no shortage of ideas, suggestions from that group, and I think we would benefit from hearing from you. So thank you very much for speaking tonight, and I'll leave your suggestion with us to figure out the best way to get feedback from the GL community.
Thank you very much for the time to speak tonight. I appreciate it as a student.
Great, thanks. The next person I see is Dan Mcgovern. Dan, good evening.
Good evening, all. Am I good?
You're good, Dan.
Good evening. I'm Dan Mcgovern, teacher of physics at Governor Livingston and the president of the Berkeley Heights Education Association. As an elected officer of the association, I've learned that not every decision I make on behalf of the community of educators I serve is always the most popular choice. A true leader can separate the desires of the majority from the concerns of the minority and do what is in the best interest of the organization that they serve. I am imploring the board to make an unpopular choice tonight and support Plan B, the hybrid model of reopening. In truth, I believe the safest plan for our students and staff is Plan C, but Governor Murphy has made it clear that he wants a physical return of students despite the ongoing struggles this country has with COVID-19 and the very real likelihood of its flare-up in New Jersey soon. Despite the governor's wishes, the Bayonne Board of Education did approve an all-remote instruction plan at their meeting this week, and I applaud them for standing up to the governor. While Plan B is not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, it is safer than Plan A and has a better chance to align with the state's guideline of 6 feet of separation that Plan A surely cannot satisfy, given that some of our classes are overcrowded with nearly 30 students, a teacher, an interpreter, and paraprofessionals. I urge the board to reduce the gamble you are taking with the lives of the students and the staff in this difficult time by choosing Plan B and limiting the amount of students in the building and in the classrooms. We are doing our part to flatten the curve. Thank you.
Great, Dan. Thank you very much. The next person I see is Daniel Mara. Daniel, you can unmute and you should be able to speak.
Thank you. Yes, my question is around what exactly is meant by daily student self-screening?
So as of right now, we are investigating having parents, and we're following the guidelines of other districts as well as what the Department of Health has stated, that parents will submit their child's temperature in the mornings before school. And teachers will also take their own temperature and submit it. Now, how that is submitted, we're not sure at this moment. We do have, I just got a recommendation earlier this afternoon for the way it's going to be submitted, but I have not had a chance to look at it. But then we will double check to make sure that everyone has their temperature taken and there is below 100.4.
Thank you. And that is just for the temperature, or will there be a survey or anything accompanied?
As of right now, we are doing the same things that the health departments are recommending, which is just the temperature. And if you've traveled outside New Jersey into any of the hotspot states, you are required to let us know.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great, thank you, Dan. The next person I see is Lily Moon. Lily, good evening. You can unmute and share your comment.
Yes, this is Chris Wong, Lily's husband. Thanks for the presentation. We appreciate the different options. Clearly, it's a fluid situation. We were curious as to the parents that select remote learning. Will they be getting like a live stream of the classroom? How will that work?
And at this time, we don't have the exact answer. We are exploring the live stream action. We also have students in the room, which are covered by HIPAA laws. So we do have to be very careful about what we are live streaming. This is an investigation that's ongoing right now, so I do not have the exact answer.
Okay, it sounds like maybe a third of the students might not be going back, so. Will we be given guidance before having to make a decision in a couple of weeks?
Absolutely, absolutely, you will be.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Dr. Varley, is it fair to say that by our next meeting, which is August 13th, we'll have that mechanic worked out in terms of how will the live stream work for the in-person students versus the remote learning students?
Yes, we will have that. That will be figured out by then.
Okay, great. The next person is Adrian Stack. Adrian, you can unmute and share your comment.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity. I first want to really thank Ms. Gasparini and the teachers at Woodruff. I have, sorry, my 17-month-old is now running through my kitchen. I had a 5th grader and a 3rd grader this year, and I really feel their teachers went above and beyond to meet the needs of their students. I have, as a teacher myself, I have a question about materials. Is the district looking to begin the school year with everything being online? I know the teachers went above and beyond and were trying to have materials dropped off at the homes of their students. Is that something that's being looked at moving forward to the 2021 school year, or are we looking to go completely virtual from the start in terms of access to materials?
So
No.
that's another detail we don't have ironed out. We have, the middle school has already received some of their Chromebooks. They had a pickup where there were tables outside and parents drove by and picked up the Chromebooks.
Yes.
So that could be a situation that we use across the board. We're not really exactly sure at this moment.
Okay, so would that be a decision that's made prior to the start of school? Because this is the first year where my 2 older ones will be in 2 separate buildings. So just in terms of continuity for students, is that something that would be decided prior to the start of school?
Yes, absolutely. And it'll be a local building decision on how that is dispersed.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for all that you guys are doing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Adrian. The next person is Elizabeth Lundberg. Elizabeth, good evening. You can unmute and share your comment.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for sharing all this information with us. I think I speak on behalf of several people, and first of all, I appreciate the difficulty of this situation, but all situations are going to be nuanced, right? When we're talking about social, mental being for all of our students, what that strikes a chord with me is that I can't imagine a 5-year-old basically walking to, say, a kindergarten and this being asked to them. I understand that there's not really an answer to that.
Elizabeth,
yes.
we're having a hard time hearing you. I don't know if it's, so you're not coming, it's chopping up, so we haven't been able to hear you clearly. So why don't you try it again and start from the beginning, just so we don't, make sure we don't miss what you're saying.
Maybe this will be better because it's better. Is it better? Can you hear me?
And maybe try without the video.
Or maybe try turning off the video, and that might be better as well.
Can you hear me better?
That sounds better.
Okay. I mean, let me know. I'll stop midway if you can't hear. Are you hearing me well?
Now we can hear you better. Start from the beginning so we don't miss what you're saying.
Absolutely. So again, thank you so much. I appreciate the difficulty and the challenges you must all be in this situation. I truly can't imagine it. I don't envy your position. I think, you know, as a mom to a 6-year-old, a 1st grader, I think what I've been troubled with, you know, we all care about our kids. This idea that, you know, that there's this blanket statement that it's best for our children to return to school for their social and emotional well-being. And are you still here? Are you guys hearing me more?
Yeah, no, we can hear you okay.
Okay, great. So I guess I just thought of, you know, sending these kids into school for their first day, right? And like logically, anyone who's taught kindergarten, pre-K, these ages, if they really think that would be, first of all, a great, you know, situation for their mental health. This is something that I've had to weigh in my head, and I've talked to several people about. I've made the decision because I think that, you know, again, in saying that it's nuanced, if I had maybe a 5th grader, I'd feel very differently. But having a young child, I can't really imagine the logistics of basically having a teacher asking them to self-police all the time. I mean, they're 5. It would be like me asking them to sit crisscross applesauce with their hands in their, in their laps the whole time. It's unrealistic. So I have chosen to do the remote learning, and I guess what I was concerned about was the verbiage that was written initially when they were discussing Plan C, which seemed a bit of an afterthought. But what it said was, please be aware that Plan C significantly impacts the amount of direct instruction and time available for the completion of district curricula. I saw that that was recently removed, and perhaps that was because Governor Murphy came out with his order to basically say that the remote learning needs to be of the same quality and scope of instruction as the other educational services provided to any student. I just really want to echo and hope that that is being made very clear, because that definitely gave me pause for concern. And I don't think that, me basically prioritizing the mental health and physical well-being of my child should be punished and not given the same. So I would, I guess, like to hear a little bit more about how that's going to be, ensured in the upcoming weeks.
Melissa, you want to talk to that?
So it's basically the same answer. We are in the process of working through how remote learning is going to work this time. We do know we're going to have a set schedule and there will be live interaction, but I cannot speak to specifics at this point.
But okay, but it will absolutely be the same quality, right, of education that all the students will be receiving. Is that correct?
I cannot say that it will be the same quality. We do know that live instruction, in-person instruction it has a higher quality than than any remote instruction. So I can't say it'll be the exact same quality. It will be more rigorous than it has been.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Elizabeth. The next person is Arathi. Arathi, you can unmute and share your comment.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can hear you fine. Good evening.
Good evening. Hi. So I am the mom of a rising kindergarten student who is seriously considering the remote learning option. So I understand that the school district is going for Plan A, and I want to echo some of the thoughts and questions other parents have posed, which is really by the time that I'm being asked to make a decision on which option or whether I want to send my daughter in person to school or not, like I would really like to have details on how the remote instruction component of Plan A or within Plan A is going to work. I think that's really going to be critical, because if it's a teacher doing a separate Zoom session with a subset of these remote learning students, it's going to completely change my decision versus some type of just live camera streaming what the teacher is teaching to the broader class at that time, which then significantly is going to limit, how much interaction my daughter can have, both in terms of asking questions and getting asked questions by the teacher. So again, in the same vein as some of the other parents have said, I just want to impress upon to this committee how critical it is to really give us details around how exactly that's going to work by the time we are being asked to send in our preferences.
Great, thank you very much. And we hear you loud and clear. It's something that, as I think we shared at the outset, we have a lot of the answers tonight, but we don't have all of the answers. And realizing that parents have a very important decision to make, we will make sure that we deliver to everybody a more detailed view of what that remote learning would be like, what the experience will be like, so they can make a decision.
Can we have Arathi say her name just so Donna can record it in the minutes?
Sure, it's spelled Arathi, but it's actually Arthi, A-R-A-T-H-I, last name Ravi, R-A-V-I. Great,
and thank you, Bill, for saying that. So I will apologize in advance for anybody's name who I do not get exactly right. Some names I know and some names are easier. To others, I apologize in advance.
But just as a protocol, before you speak, give your name and the town you live in And maybe, Mike, can we just promote the person who's next online automatically to speed this up a little bit?
I can do that, Bill. I can just promote them right away. So I'll promote the next person to do that. So that's a good suggestion. Thank you. Anna Angelova. Anna, good evening. Anna, are you there? It looks like you're there. Anna? One more time for Anna. Can you hear me, Anna? And if you could re-raise your hand afterwards, we'll come back to you. Marissa Schirik. Marissa?
Hello. Can you hear me okay?
I can. Good evening, Marissa.
Hi there. I just want to echo what some of the other parents have said. Our family would have considered a Plan B option, but we're not comfortable with Plan A, so we'll be proceeding with Plan C. We have a child who'll be entering kindergarten. He has some underlying health issues. So I just want to again highlight that we really hope that folks are taking the Plan C option seriously. And, you know, I know that there was a lot on the board's plate right now, everybody's plate, but, you know, my husband and I haven't even returned to work in the office because we're not allowed. So sending our public environment before us, we're just not comfortable with. And I'm sure, you know, I know there's, I know that you're taking it seriously, but I would just reiterate what some of the other parents have said that, you know, Plan C, we hope is being given the same attention and thought that Plan A.
Great. Thank you, Marissa. Sandra, good evening. Welcome.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can hear you very well.
Hi. Hi, Doug. I've already indicated to you in person or personally what my feelings are. I'm not happy with the way the survey was conducted. And as a result, I wonder if the responses and the choices are valid. I was actually a little bit surprised to hear that multiple responses were removed and fake names were removed. I feel that people didn't have enough time to respond to this. I feel that parents did not have enough information to make an informed decision. The plan was released in June by Mr. Murphy. That has a lot has changed since June 1st. I know you all worked very, very hard, but the experience that I had last time with the sudden switch to online learning was very, very, very positive. And I really don't understand why we would push all the children back to school while the situation is not normal. I had a question about the teachers that were, what their feelings were, which is now clear to me. They're not in favor. And I have 2 pieces of 2 points where I'm fearful. Number one, how many teachers have announced that they will either not show up, call in sick, retire early, etc. I'm very worried about that. I'm worried to lose good teachers because we rush into an online option, into an in-person option. And my second thing is everybody talks about consistency, but as per your own rules, if something happens, lots and lots of people need to stay home, get tested, etc. It's a certainty that we will have cases in our schools. And as a result, it means that lots of classes will have uncertainty. Parents will not be able to plan. The only option that people have to plan is the online option. I am surprised that we consider option A, whereas towns surrounding us, like New Providence, pick option B. I am surprised to hear that town like Old Bridge looks at the letter and not the spirit, and decides to have only 4-hour education slots 3 times a week, one time 4 hours, and the rest is online. I really feel that the survey should be conducted again with information provided to the parents, telling the parents what the options truly are, including what option C entails. Option C has been maligned from the start. Every single intro has been bad. Every single survey question has been bad. the questions have changed while the survey was being conducted. It's not correct. And I feel that currently the situation in New Jersey is good, is going to change. And I'm very, very worried about it. I pick option C. And I think more parents would if they understood what's going on. I sent you a little statistic. The number of people in America, children that have been infected, have grown from 200,000 to 288,000 in the past 2 weeks. Now, this is not here, it's not New Jersey, it's Florida, other hotspots, but why wouldn't it come back? And so if ultimately we're going to close down, what's left? Why not start online? It seems we lack time. We lack time to implement certain things, to provide answers, start online, and then slowly but surely wean ourselves towards in-person education based on data, not on, I don't know what this is based on, because the teachers don't want it. 32% of the parents don't want it. And maybe it will be more if you ask them again. And what do the students want? Because I thought that the young lady was very, very good. She speaks better than I do. That's my, I don't know, comment, question.
Great, Sandra, thanks for your comment. The only question I have is, Dr. Varley, can you, are you permitted to share the information about Sandra's question about the number of people the number of teachers who have said they were going to potentially not come back? Is that shareable information or not?
I can give a rough estimate, over 10, less than 20.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Wow, that's a lot. I hope it doesn't have too many of my child's favorite teachers. And I don't say this flippantly. I really feel that we have great teachers, and I was so very, very happy. What happened when we did the switch last time was the envy of all of my friends. Many, many towns had a bad experience. Everybody has devices. I was really, really surprised how well it worked. And so I don't understand the move back. And maybe the decision should be different for different levels. Let's say K through 5 versus middle school. Middle school kids are very, very different. And Governor Livingston even better. That's it. Sorry.
Sandra, thank you very much for your feedback. Ruth DeBang, you are next. You can unmute and share your comments.
Yes, hi. Thank you guys all for all the work you put into this plan. I myself am on some pandemic response teams, so I know how much work this is. I had a couple of questions about the different plans, and is there a criteria if the district needed to change from A to B? Like, is there a criteria about how much percentage of people sick in town, or are you waiting for the governor to make some kind of decision? That was question one. And if we opt for to send our kids option A, and we don't feel like the situation is safe, can we mid-marking period change our minds to go to option C? And one question specifically to kids changing classes, just how is that cleaning going to happen in between the classes when they change? Are the kids doing it, or are the teachers doing it real fast between the changes? So that one's sort of specific to the grade levels. Thank you.
So I'm sorry, you gave all your questions at one time. What was your question? I'm sorry.
So changing from A to B, is there a criteria that the district has that they're looking at?
So as of right now, based on all the information we have with our A plan, students will be able to be socially distanced based on the number of, on the survey, the number of people who elected, say that they would do all remote learning. So if we did have more of a health crisis or more students came back into school than we planned, there would be an option to move to plan B. Plan C would be determined by the governor. As of right now, we do not have the option to be only remote. And your second question was?
If we opt for plan A, but we feel that the situation is not safe, can we switch ourselves to plan C? Yeah. Mid-marking period?
At any time, you can move from plan A to plan C.
Okay. And the last question was about changing classes and cleaning the classrooms between those changes.
So we have we're in the process of purchasing. A lot of things are on back order because everyone is purchasing cleaning materials and PPE and everything else that revolves around this pandemic. But we are in process of getting household cleaners, which are known to kill COVID. And we, are working through that so that teachers and if students are old enough, can wipe down the desks as they move forward.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome, thank you.
Great, thank you, Ruth. Next person is Lisa Moretti. Good evening, Lisa.
Good evening. Hi, everyone. So I took Brianna's lead and I'm showing the video, even though I was not prepared for this at all. So forgive me for looking so ragged. I just want to say this before I ask my question and make a statement. I mean, no disrespect at all to Dr. Varley, Mr. McKinney, and all of the administrators who have worked so hard, and the committee members for these optional plans. So please hear me and understand that. My first question is this: what is the rationale? Oh, I'm sorry, I'm a teacher at GL, Health and Phys Ed, sorry about that. What is the rationale of choosing Plan A as the first option over Plan B? And I'm not sure who that's directed towards, but that's my first question.
So I'll take that question. One of the things we wanted to provide is consistency. And we know, and I'm sure you being a teacher know the mental health issues that some of our students, and I mean, just children everywhere are going through right now with the isolation. And so our main goal was trying to be as consistent as possible for students. And then I also like to take into account our community. Some of our parents don't have the option of working from home or don't have the ability to have a stay-at-home parent. And while I'm not really responsible for childcare, I do worry about these things, whether our family's needs are taken care of. So that was another big part of it, as well as the amount of people who will opt for remote will provide social distancing. And we know that with the mask, you can come within 6 feet of another human. So we are, we're relying on data that we've been given from the CDC, the American Academy of Pediatrics, and the World Health Organization.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Varley. So I understand the rationale. I want to speak from a staff member's perspective. Being a health and phys ed teacher, I teach driver education as well as junior health. I had a statement prepared to read, but I think it's better to just speak off the cuff. So my purpose here is to have the board members and the community members envision and picture an actual classroom. Okay, there's always a difference between theory and a practicality. So in my health classroom, driver education last year, I had 31 students enrolled initially. And I had a few students added to the roster after the scheduling because there's always changes with kids' schedules. Within that classroom, I also had an ASL interpreter because I had a deaf and hard of hearing student, as well as a co-teacher in that classroom. Okay, this is room 3, next to the weight room, across from the blue gym at GL. The classroom desks are so tightly packed together. I had to turn sideways in order to move down the aisles to get to my computer, and this is in a non-COVID situation. The student desks, from one person to looking at the back of the head of another person, there's literally, the desks are touching each other. So there's less than 1 inch from one desk to the other. And this is not an anomaly. We have, regularly 30 kids in a classroom, and it's not just health students. It's also math sections that have 27 people, not including a paraprofessional and other people. So my concern is for the safety of the students, as well as myself, their family members, and my family members, in that if you have such a tight space, there's no way that that is going to be safe for everyone. I highly recommend the Plan B option to consider. That ensures that there's going to be 50%, whereas we don't know. Maybe students are going to say to their parents in high school, I want to go back with my friends. And that's really what's going to happen. I want to go back to school. Let me be clear. I want to be back at school. I want to be back with my coworkers, with my students. So I'm not opting for remote learning. I'm opting for Plan B. So I appreciate your time. I think that's the only, acceptable, choice and the less risky choice. And I hope that you will all consider it. Thank you very much.
Lisa, thank you very much for your comments. Rebecca, if you can unmute, just share your last name.
Hi, Doug. It's Rebecca Atchison. How are you guys?
Hi, Rebecca. Good evening.
Good. You guys are doing a fabulous job, and I can't stress enough how pleased we have been with all of the communication. It's been super helpful. Understanding that all of the options and plans being looked at and discussed, I do have a question. I have a rising fifth grader to sixth grade, our first time over at Columbia. So we've missed all of the introductory stuff. And wanted to find out how the plan, and this might just be coming out later based on a building, will they be handling the switching of classes with no lockers? So as I understood it, before COVID, there were no backpacks allowed in the hallways. So you brought your backpack to school, you dumped your books and stuff in your locker, and in between classes went to your locker, kept your backpack until the end of the school year in your locker. So if there's no lockers, and I just looked at the supply list, how is that going to be managed if there's going to be transitions to different classes?
And we don't have the answer to that question yet. Unless, Scott, did that come out of your committee? Did you have anything to add to that?
Well, we did discuss it as it relates to scheduling, and with both proposals, with the A and the B, students will be physically meeting with fewer teachers each day. So that will require each day to have less in their backpacks. So it's not a perfect answer, and it's not completely flushed out yet, but we did have the discussion with that understanding that if we're not using lockers, we have to be cognizant of what the students will have to carry each day.
And just to add to that, Mr. Geiger sent me a text, which thank goodness for technology, that kids can carry totes and small backpacks into the classroom.
And that will Mr. Geiger, I guess, at some point relay that detail specific to middle schoolers in an email? I mean, a tote and a small backpack can mean so many different things to so many different people.
We will give much more information as we progress through this.
Okay. Thank you so much. I appreciate the time.
Great, Rebecca. Thanks very much. Next one up is Kyle Foster. Kyle, you just need to take yourself off of mute.
There we go. Okay.
There you go. Kyle, good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Wright. It's John Foster. I don't know how my son's name got up there, but
that's okay.
Anyway.
Good evening, John.
Good evening.
You're lucky it doesn't say Dr. Evil or something.
I'm saying, I want to thank you all for everything you did. I want to thank all the teachers and all the people that got involved in this whole preparation. I'm going to go off the reservation a little bit. I want to find out about what's going to happen with after-school activities. Like with, I'm currently the band parent president, and I'm kind of concerned about them having their season. And, I want to see what the situation is as far as going forward with that, and what, if anything, is going to be done like with after-school stuff. I understand Plan A. I like to go Plan A. I think it's great to have the kids back in school. I'm sure whatever happens down the road, if we have to bounce out to Plan B or Plan C, however it goes. But that's pretty much my question: is what's going to happen with the after school stuff?
So as of right now, we don't know fully. Every time we get ready to start, especially with high school sports, we get pushed back. I have been talking to Mr. O'Sullivan about, and he is looking into, and this may be something you can help him with as well, He's looking into getting tents so that he can practice outside, even during inclement weather, because it is impossible for them to practice inside right at this moment due to concerns. So a lot of this stuff is up in the air, but we are researching ways to get our band, music, chorus students active during the school year.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. I actually, Mr. O and I have spoken a lot in the last several weeks about a lot of different things, trying to get things going forward. You know, because the kids are excited about band camp coming up, and you know, coming off their season last year, and they still want to, you know, they still want to perform for everybody and show them that, you know, the band's still here. So the band played on, so to speak.
And we want the band to play on. We do.
I know. Well, I know you do, because you all hear them. So, you know, but I really appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Great, John. Thank you very much.
All right. Have a good night.
Thank you, John. You too. Dipti Khan is next.
Hello, everybody. I want to thank the board. I want to thank Dr. Warley for taking us through all of this with the amount of detail that you've provided. So I think we really appreciate that. I did have, I think I put 3 questions in the window. My first question was, is there a prescribed class size by grade by the DOE, given what everybody's handling, right now, the situation? Is there, to manage the social distancing requirements, have they prescribed a class size by grade, especially for the elementary schools?
They have not. They have not given us any indication.
And have we asked the question, is there such a guideline that they might issue between now and September?
They generally say at any questions that it is a local decision.
Okay. So has our board kind of thought about this yet?
So yeah, we have, and our building principals, our custodians, everyone, we have been going into classrooms and pulling everything out of the classrooms and moving desks and tables apart and using plexiglass dividers when we can, so that we can get students in the classroom safely with shields and, plexiglass dividers.
Okay.
Doing the best we can to mitigate the risk.
All right. The other question I had was, teacher absences. Typically you would have, a substitute come in. In this situation, is there a plan to have an approved list of substitutes that could step in case if the teacher is sick, or in the case where you find out the teacher is sick and you need to actually not have the students come in? Have you thought about how you will handle that? Almost like a snow day call in the morning, but for a specific class.
So yes, we always have an approved list of substitutes. However, we know that we are going to need more. We are running an ad in the Star Ledger this Sunday for substitutes, leave replacements, positions, etc. So we're working through that as of right now.
Okay. And then when we talk about the small group, especially in the 2nd and 3rd grade, like the kids that really need the support, most of these kids have sort of missed the critical part of last year to learn the skills that they need. Will there be a defined schedule that says, such and such student will kind of have, or is it on a need basis?
That is an answer a question I don't have the answer to right at this moment. We're meeting constantly to try to work through all of this. We have an entire remediation committee that is going through how this will look, but we don't have all the answers as of right now.
Okay, so just my personal, feedback from the experience that we've had in the spring is if it can be planned, it just helps the parents plan their day better. Instead of sort of getting an email that says, oh, your child has, a small Zoom in 2 hours or an hour, right? It's not practical to kind of have parents monitor the email all the time and expect to react quickly. So I think we would appreciate a little bit of a planned small group. I think they have been very beneficial. So I should have said this before. I have a rising 2nd grader and a rising 6th grader. So some of the questions that were discussed just before this as it relates to Columbia were very helpful. Again, I want to thank you for your time and helping us kind of navigate this.
Thank you very much.
Dipti, thank you very much. Brian Riley is next.
Hi, this is actually Nicole Riley. Thank you for your time.
Good evening, Nicole. Welcome.
Hi. So I had two questions, one kind of tactical and the other a little bit more around the rationale. And I'll start with the tactical one. So, you know, in these plans, it seems there's a lot of focus on keeping parents happy by implementing Plan A. And, you know, what's critical beyond that is really making sure that not just our kids, but our teaching staff is kept safe. And so what I'm looking for in this, and I'm not seeing, is what exactly is the plan for the number of feet that kids will be able to be socially distanced between Plan A and Plan B? And does this take into account the number of teachers and aides that would also need to be in the room? You know, there's verbiage in there about when possible. And so there seem to be a lot of hypotheticals around how many people would return. And so is there a real number in mind with Plan A versus B?
So if you go to the guidelines, to be less than 6 feet, you would need a mask. In most of our classrooms, we can get somewhere between 4 and 5 feet between each student with full capacity. So we're assuming, based on our survey results, that we'll probably have anywhere from 3 to 5 students per class who are not present. So that would give us obviously much more space. But, you know, it's one of the things we also, the reason the point was put in there as when possible is we do have students who require physical contact and some of our special needs students. So there's no way with those students we would be able to do the 6 feet of distance. At that time, our teachers would be given gowns, face shields, masks, etc., to make sure that they are safe, as well as the students are safe.
Okay, thank you. And my second question is around, you know, the rationale to start with Plan A. You know, if we look at states where models have worked well, even the state of New Jersey, everything has been done with gradual reopening. You know, it's a phased approach to reentry. To me, there doesn't seem to be anything phased about going straight to Plan A, where all the students would be together. Did the committee consider starting with a Plan B, seeing that things were going well, and phasing up to Plan A, hopefully in the very near future, or was that not a consideration?
We looked at all the models and we tried to come up with one that gave consistency for our students and our families, as well as provided a safe learning environment. But Plan B, when we made the decision on Plan A, we went with Plan A.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thanks very much. The next person is Shivani Dar. Shivani, good evening.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you just great.
Thank you. So I'm a parent of a rising 6th grader, and my question is in regards to the quality of social distancing. I understand Plan A requires 4 hours of in-person attendance, but what concerns me more than the length of duration is the length of duration in school is the quality of and measure of social distancing, which is of key importance to keeping everyone consistently safe and healthy. So just comparing the two plans A and B, wouldn't Plan B with 50% alternating attendance allow for a better quality to social distancing and overall movement management within the classroom and the school? Therefore, shouldn't that be a recommended or preferred method of initial school reopening?
It definitely gives us much more space. However, it does not provide a consistent form of education. And we wanted to mitigate the risk. We will provide PPE when necessary, and we want our kids back in school if at all possible.
So do we have details on how that movement within the classroom and the school is going to allow for social distancing with Plan A? Do we have those details yet?
We have, as I talked about earlier, everything has been removed from the classroom other than things that really need to be in the classroom, such as desks and chairs. And we have spaced children out. We have also looked at the survey results to determine which children from what schools won't be there. So we've gotten a good measure of what our classrooms will look like. They will not look like the classrooms you're used to seeing, where there is bookshelves and couches and chairs. There is nothing but desks and chairs or tables in the elementary schools in our classrooms.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Dr. Varley. Thank you for your time.
And thank you very much. The next person, if you can just state your name, you showed up as Galaxy Tab A. I suspect that's not your real name. So you could just share your name with us. You can unmute and share your comments.
Do you hear me? This is Sue Cito.
Hi, Sue. Good evening. How are you tonight?
Hello. I didn't realize my screen name is Galaxy. That's the first time I've heard.
No worries. No worries at all.
First, thank you to the administration, and I recognize that you guys are doing the best you can under the abnormal circumstances. I do recognize there's a lot of unknowns, and you are still working through some of the items. With that said, many parents are looking for supplemental teaching. I'm just wondering if the teachers are willing to share the lesson plans as curriculums ahead of the school year so that the parents can start preparing. Is something that I'm hoping that the administration would consider.
It's something that we'll look into. I will talk to Mr. McKinney and we'll discuss it.
Great.
That's all I have.
Okay, great. Sue, thank you very much. The next person is Jennifer Moore. Jennifer, good evening.
Hi, this is actually Jennifer's husband, David. So the main thing that we were concerned about was some details on the planning of supplementary care for kids whose parents both work. So, you know, with the school day ending in the middle of the day, that poses a problem for us. We're going to have to take on some kind of extra care. We are just interested in what options are going to be available through the school board. Some of the communications you've sent around have referenced talking with places like Primrose and YMCA and things like that. And so those are options we're interested in, but obviously, you know, we feel kind of like the timeline's getting compressed. I'm sure you feel the same way. This is an unprecedented situation, and I don't mean to trivialize what you're trying to do, but we would like to understand what we're dealing with in terms of those choices and whether or not we're just going to need to go find someone private on our own to take care of our kids when we need that care out of school. I'm sorry, we're in Berkeley Heights, and our son will be attending Hughes. So he, as a second grader, next year. The other thing is that Plan A, Plan B doesn't really matter for us. So someone referenced that one of the choices for Plan B was to give parents more options because their kids will be spending more time at school. Well, speaking, I'm a teacher also, and I couldn't possibly get home, even with what my school's doing for COVID. I couldn't possibly get home in time to pick my son up from school, whether it's Plan A or Plan B. So it's going to involve some form of extra care for us, and we would just like as much clarity as you can give us as to how that's going to play out. Thank you very much.
So I am in regular communications with Primrose and the Y, as well as Westminster, and the Y will be offering after school care as well as Primrose and Westminster. So I would feel free to reach out to any three of those organizations, and they will be able to walk you through that.
Okay, so the Y is definitely going to do it then?
Yes, the Y will be offering services.
And so that's going to start, it's going to be synchronized. I mean, you guys are communicating with them, so we don't need to worry about transportation arrangements. That's all going to be as seamless as we've come to expect from a normal non-COVID school year.
As far as of right now at 9/14, yes, it's seamless, and we have a plan.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
David, thank you very much. Beth Brockland is up next.
Hi, yeah, I actually have two questions. The first is just a clarifying question. My twins are entering kindergarten, so I'm new to the system, and I think maybe other parents might have a similar, might be wondering the same thing. You mentioned that if we choose the remote learning option, we will be committed to that option through the marking period. I'm wondering if you could just clarify how long that period is when that change happens. And my second question is with regard to students with an IEP. I noted in the presentation that services will be provided remotely. And with my children, my son receives physical therapy, and we tried doing a few sessions remotely in the spring with his therapist through Zoom. And being a 5-year-old, it didn't work. And so I'm just curious if the committee has given any thought to alternatives to ensure that the children who have IEPs but are the younger ages can still receive the benefits of those services remotely.
So I'll answer the IEP question. If you as a parent chose in-person learning, we would provide those services in person. Remote learning would mean we would have to send someone to your house to do an in-person learning. And so we are not going to send any of our faculty members to people's houses. As far as a marking period is usually anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks. It sometimes varies amongst elementary to high school students. If that helps.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank
I
you.
also know that earlier on in the chat window, Mike Scarra posted the link to the marking periods that's on our website as well. Great, thank you, Beth. The next person up is Jennifer Lopez.
Hi, this is Jennifer. My daughter is a student at Hughes, and I have a son who's going to be beginning kindergarten. My question has to do with the contact tracing. Like, once we do start to get cases, what exactly is what's going to happen once we have cases arising in classrooms? How will parents be notified, if at all?
So because of privacy laws, we couldn't tell you exactly how anyone who had contacted COVID-19. You would most likely get a phone call that would say, someone in your class has contacted COVID-19 and your child will need to quarantine.
Okay.
It would be something along that lines.
All right, great. So there would be a phone call, and at least that much would be given.
Information, yes.
Okay, and then just one more question. Well, first, thank you so much for your time, everyone. And then the second question has to do with just once again a statement regarding curriculum and just not being able to maybe complete the curriculum in a given year. Like, long story short is, I have to be concerned about my daughter being held back. I guess that's just a concern because we're leaning towards a remote plan. It seems that Plan A depends on, a lot of students, or at least that 32% or whatever that figure was, staying home. So I think it's wonderful you're trying to provide the consistency to the parents who don't have the option, for remote or just don't desire it. But in terms of the fact that the Plan A kind of depends on all of the parents going remote, I'd like to know that, that my daughter, is still considered a student at Berkeley Heights who is just as important as the students who are going into the classroom.
Absolutely. There's definitely not going to be a lesser being because you chose remote for learning for your child. Absolutely. What my point on the statement is that it is live interaction with the teacher is much different than a video of a teacher. However, we will be doing live interaction of videos of our teachers with our remote students. We're not sure how it looks just yet, but your child will not be a lesser being by being remote at all. They are still Berkeley Heights students, and we will include, inspire, and empower them.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you, Jennifer. I would just add that to your first question about contact tracing, there's no different from contact tracing for a student as it is for contact tracing of anybody else in Berkeley Heights or Union County. We're not doing anything different than we'd be doing for contact tracing for others. The next person is Sai Bargarvi. Sai, good evening.
Hi, good evening, Doug. I would like to start with thanking you all for working hard on providing us these options. The way we switched from, like in spring when we had to suddenly switch over to remote learning, especially at Woodruff, we can't thank enough, like Mrs. Gasparini. My daughter was in 3rd grade. Mrs. Watkins and Finkelstein did an amazing job. And I would like to thank all of you for giving us these options. I have a couple of questions on students with IEPs in low, like, in classes like 2nd grade or 3rd grade. So I know that previous years I've asked this question, and I was hoping I will hear something from the board and from the superintendent, is this year, so we couldn't meet in person for kids with IEPs. And then normally during summer, there is like extended school year or summer school that's offered to these kids. So remote learning was tough for some of these kids. So why wasn't, like, what are our options? So we have got some packages to do, like when I asked our class teachers, we were given like specific math and English work, and they added some work to Google Classroom. But what is the plan? Like when they return back to school, will these kids be evaluated to see if they finish the curriculum for their existing grade that they completed in 2020? So, and then if there are any gaps in their knowledge, how do we plan to address them?
So that is a very large question. We do have a remediation committee as well as a special education committee. And I do know that Ms. Gardner is having a special session with parents who are invited. She sent out an email today, I think, regarding how she's moving forward on the planning. So I think that's a question for her, for the special education department. For all of our students, we are benchmarking and assessing once they get into the building, as well as even if the governor decides we fully go remote, then we will still be benchmarking and assessing students to try to find out their level and where those gaps are, and then work to meet those needs to catch the students up. One benefit of having younger children is we have time to get them caught up. The older children, we have less time. So we are going to work diligently to make sure we get those students where they need to be.
So, so there will be an email to parents with kids with IEPs on, and then also, was there a summer school planned at all for 2020 or?
Yes, we did have a remote summer school.
Okay, so, okay. And then, but there is evaluation planned when all kids return back to school, and especially kids with IEPs, to see where they are. And then that's the email that will be sent today.
There will be an email about a parent meeting for special ed students.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for all you do. And I know it's a difficult situation for all of us. We are all working remotely, and then planning right now for fall. We don't know how we're going to be come fall with the flu season and everything. I really appreciate all the work that you guys are doing. Thank you.
Great, Sai. Thank you very much. Next up is Todd Najarian. Todd?
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you fine. Good evening.
Great. Thank you very much, Todd Najarian. I have a student at Mary Kay going into kindergarten, as well as a student in second grade at Woodruff. Thank you very much for conducting the meeting this evening and holding the public forum. Very much appreciated. I just have a couple questions, and I'd like to get a little bit of clarity. First of all, recently there was a plan or a request, I guess, submitted to Governor Murphy from the New Jersey's teacher union. In that plan, the requested guidance from the New Jersey's teacher union was in fact the 6 feet of social distance. Based on what you have stated this evening, I find it kind of, I guess I'm looking for a little clarity based on the fact that the survey that was put out just recently was taken into account that essentially a certain percentage would not be coming, therefore Plan A made sense to achieve more distance. I don't think everyone, when they filled out that survey, that was their final decision. And the language leaning towards has been utilized significantly tonight. I don't think that was everyone's final decision. So therefore I do have concern that Plan A is being weighed on heavily based on assumption that those tendencies that were all selected will in fact happen. So I would like to find out if, for some reason, those percentages change, how do you still accomplish the social distancing with Plan A? And why Plan B was not heavier evaluated? It does feel that Plan A was initially rolled out, Plan B was an afterthought, and now Plan B seems to be something that, well, it's just really not possible. And I find it hard to believe that cities, towns, states are all coming up with a mixed usage system similar to Plan B and accomplishing social distancing. And to hear a teacher tonight discuss and describe how a classroom looks, that's concerning as a parent. And I think especially for myself, having young students, the social distance I think is very important. And again, I hear and understand what you're all saying about the health and safety of students, and I appreciate that. But it seems somehow this is getting disregarded for an effort to get all kids in class. A mixed use plan would allow kids to be in class, and I think that's a great thing, and we would certainly consider that if so. But if Plan A is the consideration, we will most likely be opting for Plan B. So I know I grouped a lot into that statement, and I'm hoping maybe you can break it apart, first starting with what the teachers union has said to the governor and how that's applied to Berkeley Heights plans, and why the board chose Plan A when it seems to be the effort is to get kids in school and social distancing is not the highest consideration.
So I will start with social distancing. One of the things, if you look at any of the guidance, 6 feet apart without a mask, we are requiring masks for students who are less than 6 feet apart, as well as teaching staff, paraprofessionals, counselors, etc. So while we are spacing children apart, we also have the added layer of protection of wearing masks. So hopefully that answers that question. As far as what the teachers union has discussed with Governor Murphy, we still abide by, if you look at doctors and nurses and people who interact with other people in a close distance, they still wear PPE. And you know, school is consistent, school is normal, and we would like to get some sense of normalcy back for our students if at all possible.
Okay, thank you very much.
Great, Todd, thank you very much. Next is Ed Vergara.
Hi, thank you. I have a three-part question. So the first one is the onus of curriculum. The second one is who's involved in contracts, that sort of thing. And the third addresses why A to C and not B to C. So with the onus of the curriculum, are we now expecting the teachers to basically draw upon their experience to manage this new paradigm that we're dealing with, whether it be A, B, or C? And which kind of runs into the second question of like, who's involved? Like, are we taking federal grants? Is the Anti-Defamation League involved in our school curriculums, or any political organizations? So if we can address those two first, I'd truly appreciate it.
So as far as the curriculum, we have curriculum supervisors as well as Mr. McKinney, who is the curriculum and instruction assistant superintendent, as well as teachers who work on committees to redefine our scope and sequence. Obviously, we know we're going to have to change our instruction and our curriculum for 4 hours a day, giving children time to get home and then reconnect in the afternoon. So we realize that we're going to have to change what is taught and make it more conducive to online learning as well as instruction within the classroom. So that is question one. And question two, as far as any political groups involved in our curriculum is given, our standards are given to us by the state. And then we design the curriculum based on those standards. Teachers have very hands-on, a lot of input, and there are not any political groups involved in the writings of our curriculum.
So as far as the teachers, or rather we, when you describe that we are setting a curriculum or whatever, who is we?
The districts are given standards, not curriculum. We come up with our own curriculum, but that we are given standards that the curriculum has to match.
Sorry, but more pertaining to the new paradigm, right? And the school teacher, is the onus on the school teachers to kind of develop this whole thing and deal with?
No, not at all. It will be administration working with the school teachers to decide what's important and what we need to get taught in our 4-hour days. What's the most critical information we need to get across?
And I'm not trying to harp on this, but you know, it's very complex what's going on, right? And we don't even have all the facts, right? So it's a lot of misinformation, disinformation kind of thing. But as far as the onus of the curriculum, I think that we need more information before sending out a survey kind of thing, right? Where the parents are, you know, we're working, that kind of thing. And we want the best for our kids. But we certainly want them to be safe, and we want to get education because it's an experience, right? Every year is an experience, and you don't want to lose out on that. So it's quite important to know what the curriculum is going to be prior to, or what's going to be affected by the curriculum prior to making these kind of decisions, which kind of leads into, I'm sorry, Dr.
So the curriculum hasn't changed. It would be the scope and sequence that would change. The curriculum is exactly the same as it was last year at the beginning of 2019. The scope and sequence will change because we're working on 4-hour days, and then we're going to reconnect in the afternoon. So we don't have as much time with the students. Our curriculum is exactly the same. Nothing has changed there.
Okay, thank you. And finally, the third part, which is why A to C as opposed to B to C, right? And B to C being, right, part-time kind of thing. And just to throw another fact or whatever, New Providence has a rolling schedule, so to speak, right? So that, and many parents in New Providence are upset about that thing, but at least they seem to be having, so it seems like, I just hope we're not doing this choosing A out of expedience, right? As opposed to spending a little more time on B, and perhaps, even though it's more complicated, and maybe we have to move into some rolling days like Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, whatever that be. But why are we eliminating B all of a sudden? Because I presume that most of us chose B, which I don't know if that's a fact, but is that correct? Like, why are we eliminating B again, exactly?
So in our parent survey, 68% of our parents voted for Plan A. So Plan A got the majority of the votes. We have spent so many hours and so much time working through every single plan. And Plan A, I've worked with multiple superintendents from Chatham, Summit, across the board. And we then turnkeyed it into our committees and felt that it is the best option for our students as well as our communities to go with Plan A. Then we sent out the survey to get backup information to make sure that our families supported this move, and they did. So that is the reason we are going with Plan A.
Okay, I just want to touch on what Todd spoke about, I guess, about the details of like having, somebody mentioned, I think it was you mentioned about having like plexiglass, and I think that's, you know, the experience of the school, you know, being in school is important as well as the health and all that. And I just hope that, yeah, you guys consider the shocking value of doing something like that. I mean, it's very, it's antisocial. These are antisocial behaviors that we should really value as much as the other things and consider, even if I don't know what the details of the survey are. I don't know if it's a survey or if it's a referendum, right? Any sort of binding properties to it. But I'm just concerned about the social aspect of it as well. But thank you.
Ed, thank you very much. And I can assure you that, a great deal of thought went into all the different options. And, Dr. Raleigh shared with you how many people were involved in this, how many committees were involved. It was a great deal, but thank you for your comment. The next person shows up for me is Alicia. If you could just share your full name and share your comments.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can hear you fine. Good evening.
Hi, so my name is Alessia Borets. I have two boys. One will be in 6th grade and one freshman. So touching like that question about survey, actually, I don't know, can you guys send it? Can you do it again? Because for example, I missed that because being a healthcare worker, I work 5 days, sometimes 6 days a week, it rotates. So I don't check email often. And I didn't even see it until it was late. And so that question, will you send again, to the parents or not? So who can answer?
So, and not at this time. We have to move forward. We have to submit our plans and have everything ready by August 3rd. So obviously we don't have enough time to send out another survey. I do apologize.
All right, so the next question, again, being a healthcare worker, so it's more about infection control. So about the bathrooms, will be how about the kids? Will they be able to use the bathrooms or no bathroom breaks? Who is gonna clean the bathrooms, for example, if they come back to the classroom? Can they be checked, to use hand sanitizers or something like that?
So we will limit the amount of children, and right now we have an occupancy of one person at a time in our bathrooms. We will absolutely have hand sanitizer when they return, but yes, we will not make our children not use the bathroom during the day.
All right, and then contact tracing, especially high school kids are taking all different classes. Some kids take honor classes, regular classes, AP classes. So if someone got sick with COVID, I understand parents will be notified, but then we have to quarantine them. So how about the access? Will it be Zoom classes so they won't miss anything important? So that question, did you guys think about that?
Yes, absolutely. That's on one of the slides that they would then go to remote learning at that time.
And the last question, having a child with underlying conditions. So we're gonna go with AB, but if, I don't know, doctor or of course, his pulmonologist will, I already spoke to him, so they want us to stay in touch with them. Can we opt out for remote learning after, if you start with plan A, but then our pulmonologist would say no guys, you had zone or something, so you have to go back to online. Can we do that?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for all your answers. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. The next person is Jakarta.
Yes, can you all hear me?
I can hear you fine. Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening to Dr. Varley, Mr. Reinstein, and members of the Board of Ed. Thank you for this opportunity to speak with you all. So now, kind of what I'm about to talk about is not really any great time to talk about it, and I don't want to water down the discussion of COVID safety, but this needs to be talked about. So my name is Jakata Kalfani of Unfiltered, which is a coalition of GL alum of color who've come together with the purpose of promoting racial justice in our town, especially through education and conversation. So as we head back, we definitely must focus on the physical health of everyone, but we don't want to downplay mental health. And as we focus on the social and emotional learning, mental health of students is a large part of this. So you may recognize me and other members of Unfiltered from the Berkeley Heights March for Black Lives, where we use the phrase, it's not a moment, it's a movement. So to us, members of the people of color, racial justice and discrimination and bias aren't fleeting. They didn't start in 2020, and they were our experiences as elementary schoolers, middle schoolers, and high schoolers. We're very grateful to the Berkeley Heights school system for providing us with a rigorous academic program that allowed us to pursue our dreams of higher education. And because we're so grateful for this, we're only seeking to contribute to the education with our comments offering today by highlighting the power of education in molding young minds. So in New Jersey, there's something called the Amistad Legislation, which mandates a framework for the implementation of historical legacies of slavery into curriculum. This is something that we were not aware of as students, but has come to our attention as adults. Now, while slavery may have been discussed in classes, we can't say that students have developed an understanding of the legacy of slavery, nor the implications of systemic racism or implicit bias. We didn't delve into important concepts such as redlining, school-to-prison pipelines, racial health disparities, or the prison industrial complex, nor do we celebrate the accomplishments of prominent figures. During Black History Month, when one of the only Black teachers on staff would read the accomplishments on the morning announcements, we witnessed students rolling their eyes and laughing. And as students of color, we didn't witness our classmates develop an understanding of bias. Instead, we heard inappropriate jokes and microaggressions such as, "Oh, you're basically white. Is my tan as dark as you? I'm an N-word now." And while we sat next to kids who wore dreads and afros for Halloween and proudly displayed Confederate flags in the back parking lot without repercussion, even when students of color and allies expressed discomfort. So students are products of their environment, basically, and of the school systems that they grow up in. They absorb a lot of information actively and passively through learning, which means that students can learn about things like this through expanded curriculum and devoted to increasing awareness of injustices in our country, both through the actions of the administration, especially when it comes to reprimanding instances of racial bias. As alumni, we hope that our school system continues gradually academically preparing individuals, and we also hope that they don't overlook the importance of training students to be compassionate, empathetic thinkers who are prepared to stand up for civil rights. We're really thankful to have this opportunity to speak today, but our ideas and stories expand beyond this brief statement. We hope to establish a long-lasting relationship with the Berkeley Heights Board of Ed in order to have the necessary conversations and push forward for progress within our town. If you would like, if members of the board or if you would like to contact us, we will send information in the chat. And we also have an Instagram, which is BH Unfiltered. Thank you very much.
Ricardo, thank you very much. I am aware of your group, and I can tell you that there are a number of diversity and inclusion efforts that have gone on since the march that has come up. Dr. Varley has talked at a previous meeting about starting diversity committees at both the middle school and at the high school, as well as one at the district level. We've also met with the Berkeley Heights Diversity Council, a group that's been in existence for a couple of years. And for those that attended our meeting in June, there were two groups that addressed the board that wanted to focus on different levels for people of color and diversity. I have talked personally with both of those groups, and we are working to ways to integrate their passion and their energy and their enthusiasm into ways that we can improve our district. And you mentioned curriculum as one. That is an area that all three of those groups have mentioned to us that we can improve on. We think there are other ways that we can improve as well. Although I think we are behind the curve in that we are putting more effort into this year, this is something we could have done earlier. That said, I can tell you going into this year, COVID or not COVID, there is additional work being done in the diversity front on multiple levels with multiple groups, yours included, where we want to take, again, that passion, energy, enthusiasm that people have to improve what we can do for our entire community, not just for our school community, around racism and diversity. So thank you and the people on your organization for what you do. And again, we'll continue to do that. So thanks again for sharing your thoughts tonight.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Great, thank you. Next is Sandra Francisco. Sandra?
Hi, thank you so much for having us today. I think First, I just want to thank everybody. I completely agree. Consistency for kids is really important. I'm a mom of 2 boys, new to the school system, both going into Mary Kay. One will be entering kindergarten and one first grade. We were hoping to be able to go back in person, and you know, for us, we're just not at that comfort level. So we'll be opting for remote learning. I know, Dr. Varley, you mentioned that August 3rd is an important date where we actually have to have a full plan to really move forward. And so just as a mom who was hoping to be able to send kids in person, but now seriously considering the all remote option, you know, never really taught kids from home, not a teacher, don't really have guidance, new to the school system. So understanding we have a lot of work to do on that remote plan, but with 40% of the kids opting for that, if there's anything that we as parents can do or partner with, you know, the school or MKM, because I understand all ages will be different, it's just really concerning. And, you know, I kind of feel hearing that 40% of the kids will be virtually learning, you know, my thought process is, am I putting them at a disadvantage? Because we walk to MKM every day. They want to be there. They want to go in. So does that mean it's now safe for those 60 kids because they now have 6 feet of distance and they're going to be able to get that one-on-one attention? So I'm putting my own children at a disadvantage. And there's no perfect answer, and that is a decision that we as parents have to make, but really understanding if we'll have access to curriculum, lesson plans, you know, the option to have them sitting in front of a screen for 4 hours and virtually seeing a class at that age, I don't think is optimal either. So I really do think before we can make a decision on what is best, you know, for our own children, we really just need some guidance from the district and from the board on, you know, what that's going to look like and what our options really are. So I guess just some guidance on, I know that's a plan, you know, that we're still working to perfect. When do you think we can have that, and what can we be doing to help contribute to that plan?
So more information is coming. You'll be hearing a lot from Ms. Corley sooner rather than later. Buildings, obviously, by different age groups are doing things a little bit differently, but you will have live interaction from your teachers, and you will be getting much more information as the weeks progress. So I assure you, you will have enough information to make a decision.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thanks. The next person is, looks like Maris Q. Or Marisk, might be. If you can just unmute and you can share your comments. Marisk, if you could just unmute. All right, while you're hopefully muted, the next person is Sharmista. Sharmista? Great.
Yeah, hi. I'm Shrikant. I'm Sharmista's husband. 2 questions.
Great, welcome.
Yeah, first of all, thank you. Like you're going above and beyond in these strange times. So thanks everyone for everything that you're doing. So the first question is really resectioning. So given that we have a bunch of students who will be remote, will, instead of spreading all the teachers thin, does it make sense to have teachers who will be teaching only online and other teachers who will be teaching in-person students? So is there any provision for resectioning? Second question is, given the possibility that we might have remote learning for some time to come, are the teachers being trained in new pedagogical methods that are more suitable for online learning, like inverted classroom? So you can't teach the online class just the way you teach an in-person class, because the levels of engagement is different. You can't ensure students are doing what they're doing in class. So you need different techniques. So are we embracing those? Are we bringing any external resources for that?
So I'm going to leave this with Mr. McKinney because he has been instrumental in this portion. So I'm going to leave it to Scott for this.
Sure. To your first question, regarding the sectioning and balancing of the classes, now based upon the results and the actual numbers of students, we are certainly going to look at opportunities to provide additional social distancing, and by spreading kids and making sure they're spread evenly across different sections, so that that we can provide the best environment for all of our students. So we will, once we have actual data to work with as students, once we present additional information to all of our families, and then we reach out for final requests to select that remote option, then we will have to dive back in and balance those sections, balance those classrooms, provide additional social distancing so that we can create the safest environment possible. As to your second question regarding best practices and improving, the different techniques and using technologies, that is something that we're in the process of creating for our teachers to start in August and continue through September, through professional development and turnkeying, and utilizing the skills of teachers who were exceptionally successful in implementing the remote learning, and sharing best practices and sharing successes across grade levels as appropriate, as across subject areas as appropriate. So we are in the process of doing that and providing that. Of course, through the month of August, that training and those things will have to take place virtually, but what better environment as to model these techniques as we train our teachers and we operate in a remote learning environment and work together and collaborate in that way. So the answer to both of your questions is yes. We are diving into both of those to provide the best learning environment for all of our students.
Thanks. I think the second question I'm good with. The first question probably I need to restate. So will there be teachers who will be teaching exclusively to students who are remote? And so that way you will have, so the teacher will have specialized methods and techniques for those students, versus teachers who will have mostly students who come online or can take the, so it's not a question of each section being balanced, but rather you want to kind of optimize or streamline to what the students are. So essentially, if I have a teacher who's really good with online and students who are online, you want to kind of, you want to compartmentalize it that way.
We've had those discussions and we haven't closed the door on that opportunities. I will tell you that there are some challenges inherent in doing that at different levels, whereas in elementary school, it might be feasible to accomplish that. Teacher certification requirements, once we hit the 6th grade, 6th through 12th grade, pose additional challenges with creating an environment where we have somebody able to, and also certified to teach all of the different subject areas in those areas. So we haven't closed the door on that. We are exploring that as a possibility and an opportunity based upon the number of people who select that option. But we've run into some roadblocks and some challenges as well. It doesn't apply across all grade levels in the same way. So the answer is, somewhere in there, maybe, as we move forward and have greater information.
Thank you.
Great, thanks very much. Next, Susan Poe. Good evening, Susan.
Hi, everybody. I think I'm a little bit in the dark here, but I want to say a few things. The one thing I want to say is thank you to the parents of Berkeley Heights, because if there was ever a time when we say it takes a village to raise a child, last spring was the time. And it has been hard, and there are challenges on every level. That said, I have a couple questions. So I heard some people talk about IEPs and special education and certain kind of PPEs. I work with first graders who need to learn reading. And it's very hard to teach reading when you're 6 feet apart. So I want to know if my team will have PPEs that will protect me. That's one of my concerns. And another concern is subs. If we're out, are subs going to be comfortable coming into the classroom and being able to teach in the real Plan A situation? And the third thing was the bathrooms. I didn't really think about this until someone said it. And I was like, oh, our toilets do not have lids. And I know that COVID is transmitted through feces and urine. I don't want to get gross, but we know this scientifically. And our toilets do not have lids. So what is the plan for the bathrooms? Thank you.
So I can answer the PPE question. Obviously, you know, we have ordered face shields for every staff member in the district, as well as some students. We will have backup masks, but most people do have masks. So if we provided PPE for everyone, we would not have any finances left in our budget. And I will let Donna talk about the toilets because I wasn't on the facilities committee. I was on it, but she definitely has much more information than I do on that.
It's a great question, Susan, and it's something that we're looking into. The bathrooms in the early childhood center are different, so it is something that we're looking into, and we'll come up with a solution for it.
Thank you.
Great, thank you, Susan. Next is Anna Angelova.
Wait.
Oh, sorry.
A sub question, like no one answered the sub question.
Oh, sorry. We like I said earlier, we have an ad in the Star Ledger coming out this weekend to try to garner more substitutes. I don't know the answer of whether people are going to be comfortable coming in. I will say that we're not right now having a problem filling our positions. So I'm not sure if that's going to relate to the substitute teacher aspect.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great, thank you, Susan. Sorry, Anna, now it's time for you. Anna Angelova. And it looks like you're there and you're unmuted. Can you hear me, Anna? All right, Anna, stay there. If you can hear me, we'll come back to you. The next person shows up as words are MPS room 18, and the picture is of Spider-Man. So if you can just tell us who you are, and then you can share your comments.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jared Propus, and I'm a 4th grade teacher at Mountain Park Elementary School.
Good evening, Jared. How are you tonight?
Good evening, everyone. Dr. Varley, Mr. McKinney, Mr. Reinstein, and the Board of Education members, thank you for all your hard work during this difficult time. As other educators have already said, I agree that Plan C is the safest plan for everyone.
Oh, it looks like we just lost Jared. So, Jared, I promise if you dial back in, we'll get you back.
Doug, I didn't even know you had that button.
I can assure you I did nothing to influence Jared, who I do know, and I would. Anna Angelova, are you still there? I see you're on there, and unmuted, but I don't know if you're there. Anna, you there? Maybe not. We'll go to Michael Osborne next. Michael? Michael Osborne, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me? Sorry about that.
Michael, good evening.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. So 2 things that I've heard tonight are talk about consistency and a safe environment from the board. Plan B prioritizes safety over consistency because it provides greater social distancing opportunities. So by choosing Plan A, it seems as though the board has chosen to prioritize consistency over a safe environment for our children and our teachers. Can you please explain the afternoon sessions of Plan A? Can you provide some clarity on what is happening in the afternoon sessions, and why wouldn't we just split? Because it seemed to me that Plan A had an opportunity to split the kids, half the kids in the morning, half the kids in the afternoon, which would provide the social distancing opportunities that would provide a safe environment for our students and our teachers, and also provide that consistency that you guys have prioritized. And a second question, if you could do a very easy one, is when the kids and the teachers are testing positive and you're quarantined, is it the assumption that those students would just be part of the remote learning subset of students? Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
Great. Thank you, Michael. Go ahead.
So as far as if students did test positive or have to quarantine, yes, they would roll right into the remote learning aspect of our plan. And in the AM and PM version, we did look at that. However, it would extend. We would have to clean buses after the first group of students were transported home. We would have to clean all of the classrooms, and we would also, our teachers would need time to have lunch. They would need prep time, and their day would extend much longer than is contractually feasible, and thus would cost the district it would be a huge financial burden, as well as a logistical nightmare on trying to figure it all out. Our days would be 12-hour days by that time. So it was one of those things we did look at and quickly realized it's not something that is feasible for our school day.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Varley. I see Jared is back. Jared, we're back to you.
Thank you. Thank you. I was just saying that as other educators have already said, I agree that Plan C is the safest plan for everyone. However, as we are not able to start remotely, I strongly urge you to reconsider beginning the year with Plan B. We've heard a lot about social distancing. For Plan A, it has been stated that students will be spaced 3 to 6 feet apart from one another in a classroom. It has also been stated that a space of between 6 to 10 feet will be created in the front of the classroom for staff and to space staff from students as much as possible. Can data be shared with the public that shows the exact number of students able to be in a classroom using these guidelines? I know that Dr. Varley mentioned that a lot of the furniture has been removed and the classrooms are going to look different, but is there an actual number with the furniture removed and desks placed? How many students can fit in a classroom using these guidelines?
So we obviously have classrooms that have multiple sizes, and they're all very different. So I'm not sure that I could answer that as a general question. I think, one of the things we have discussed is having students and staff wear PPE. So where social distancing cannot be feasible, everyone is we have mitigated the risk of COVID-19.
I think just for me as a classroom teacher, I'm very concerned if guidelines aren't followed. With those guidelines, as you said, I would definitely feel more comfortable with Group B. And in my class, I think I have over 20 kids this year. I'm not exactly sure. So just making sure those guidelines are followed and knowing just even specifically in my own class how many kids can fit, that would be great information for me, and I'm sure for other staff members as well. Thank you very much.
Great, Jared. Thank you very much. Next up is Chris. Chris, I see you're on, and you're on mute. Good evening, Chris.
Good evening. Thank you, everybody, for your time this evening. My name is Chris Pedicine. I have a rising third grader and a rising first grader. So my wife and I have spent a lot of this spring, as many of you folks have spent a lot of time trying to plan for safe reopening. I spent a lot of time this spring working on how to safely operate my business and using a lot of the same measures and risk mitigation techniques that I'm sure folks on this call have been weighing. And so I think as my wife and I are weighing the potential for in-person learning versus remote learning, I think as a statement that has been echoed by several folks this evening, we feel that the Plan B is a safer route based on what is known right now about transmission and classroom densities. That's the method of how we're running my business. We're keeping half the people out and remote and half the people in, spacing things out, doing a lot of the same mask wearing, things like that. I'm also a professional in the air conditioning industry, and I'm spending my time right now, besides working on my own business, I'm spending my time helping schools add another mitigation technology into those. And so while I'm out there helping other school districts, I thought it would make sense to both make the board as well as the parents in the district aware that there is now an air cleaning technology that has been proven in a biosafety level 3 laboratory to inactivate SARS-CoV-2, the virus that causes COVID-19. And it's something that's relatively easy to retrofit into any moving air system within the schools. So I'm personally right now retrofitting 12 elementary and middle schools for Howell Township before school opens. We just delivered hardware to Warren for 2 of their elementary schools, and we're working with many other districts right now that are also looking at it. So from a I guess selfish perspective for my children's safety, as well as selfish perspective for my business, I wanted to at least notify the folks that are running my town that I'm out there helping other towns, and that I'm happy to help at least discuss this technology at whatever level as you're doing your planning. I know that for everybody on this, you've been spending a lot of time, and safety is a moving target. There's a lot of different opinions in town, and so wanting to express our opinion on population density as parents, as well as express my offer to help in whatever way I can with another level of safety for air cleaning to help control both pathogens and the particulate that moves throughout the space. I want to offer whatever I can do as a parent in the district that I'm doing for others. I offer it to folks in town as well. Thank you, everybody, for all the time that you're spending to try to make our children safe. We know it's a heavy lift, and there's a lot of opinions running around. So we thank you, everybody, for what you're doing.
Can you drop your contact email or something in the chat, and Ms. Belazzola will get in touch with you?
Absolutely.
Don't mind.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chris, I was going to offer 3 comments. One, thank you for your comments as a parent. Thank you for your comments as a professional. I was going to say the same thing. Donna Felizzola, who you see on screen, is our business administrator, and she deals with all of the facility issues in our group. And lastly, thank you for acknowledging that there are a multitude of opinions about this subject. That might be the understatement of the last.
Yeah, understood. I know that everybody's dealing with a lot, so we appreciate that you're taking it all into consideration.
That might be the biggest understatement of the last 2 hours and 36 minutes. But thank you for your comments again as a parent and as a professional. And it goes without saying, we've had a lot of people reach out to us in different professional capacities over the years, people who are educators, technologists, facilities people. And it's great, part of my opening comments this evening is about we are a community together, and people have brought ideas to us, and yours sounds like one that's worth pursuing. So thank you again. Next is James Bryant. James, good evening. If James Bryant, you just need to take yourself off of mute. And there.
Hi, this is Karima Bryant. Can you hear me okay?
I can. Karima, good evening. How are you tonight?
Hi, I'm well, thank you. We have 4 children, 3 currently in the Berkeley Heights system. And I just wanted to, and I did put a comment in the chat as well. And it was mentioned earlier about the requests that Black Berkeley Heights families had, and we submitted in June. We do want to make sure that it is seen and reviewed on a regular basis, and that we receive progress updates on exactly what was requested. We do, as Jakata mentioned earlier, this is a movement, and we greatly appreciate that the work that the board and educators are doing to get our schools and students ready. And I realize that each parent will have their own desires and needs. However, it is still important to us that we continue to stay focused on the area of diversity and education for our students as well.
Great, thank you. Without repeating everything I said to Jakata, I can assure you that we will provide regular updates regarding diversity, both from the diversity councils that we have at the schools that will include students, as well as the couple of groups that have engaged with us So I can assure you that we will be providing regular updates for those. So thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Good evening. Next up is Krista S. Krista, good evening.
Hi there. Hi, everybody. Can you hear us okay now?
I can now. Good evening.
Good evening to you. So I'm Kurt Saturnia, and guys, thank you so much. I'm sure that most of us can't imagine the amount of work that has already gone into this. My question or comment, I guess, that I'm wondering about is, I think that this statistic was 68% of the parents had chosen option A if possible. I don't know what percentage chose B, but by choosing A, in a way, it seems like we're excluding that 20 or whatever percent that have chosen B. Whereas if we choose B, are we really being more inclusive and including 88, 90%, whatever of our township at that point that would be willing to send their kids to in-person instruction at that point? And I do also really appreciate something you had said, Dr. Varley, about really aiming towards consistency. I wonder, and it's not that I'm sure that is really important, but I wonder if we're still being consistent by having a week on, a week off, if they're still getting some in-person instruction, and we're giving them some consistency, but also giving them a little bit more safety and being more inclusive of probably the larger township itself. So I'm just wondering if you guys had thought about that, if there's any thoughts about that period. Thank you.
So we talked about all three, many types of Plan Bs. We talked about Plan A, we talked about Plan B and how Plan B would look. And in the end, the decision, between my team and between meeting with multiple superintendents, we all came across the thought of our students, while we realize COVID-19 is dangerous, and we do not take it lightly, we do also worry about the mental health of our students, and also trying to look at our communities and what will help our communities still maintain the livelihoods and be able to function as families and as participating community members. So that is the reason we decided on Plan A.
Great.
So, sorry, can I continue that? No, I understand that part. I guess what I'm asking is, I don't know what percentage of parents chose option B, and we have a rising 9th grader and a rising 6th grader, and I assure you they both want to be back in school. The last thing they want to be is home with mom and dad. But I'm wondering in general, I've heard a lot of people talk that they would probably send their kid with option B, they wouldn't with option A. So are we really serving the community or the larger community if we were to pursue an option B, and now 85 or 90% of our students were at least getting some in-class instruction, as opposed to 68% or whatever the original number was?
We did discuss that when the survey results came out, but the number of parents who said that they absolutely would not send their children to school with Plan A or B modified our decision. It made our decision for Plan A stronger.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thanks very much. The next person is Kristen C. Kristen, good evening.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can hear you fine. Good evening.
Okay, perfect. Hi. I want to first off thank you and everybody else who has just spent so many hours and hours trying to figure this out and coming to a decision that doesn't make 100% of people happy. Oh my God, my dog. Sorry. He was quiet this entire time. Sorry. But I really want to echo what Kurt just said, ironically, right before me, in that choosing Plan A over Plan B really seems to be forcing a lot of the community families to choose Plan C. Our family has 2 girls in Governor Livingston. We've been incredibly happy and thrilled that we're in Berkeley Heights. They've gone through all of their schooling here, starting at Mary Kay. Fantastic teachers, amazing. I myself am a classroom teacher in a neighboring town. And from that end, I can speak the classroom size. They're not big. So using Plan A, having so many children in at a time, the classrooms that I have been in, Mary Kay, Mountain Park, Columbia, I was a very active volunteer. I can't really imagine how the children will be able to socially distance even 3 to 4 feet in those classrooms. I feel like by offering Plan B, you would be more inclusive, like Kurt just said, allowing more community families to have their children in school. And also, I don't know, the people who I speak with, they've not been inside with anyone outside of their family in months. And going from that to Plan A, where we're automatically going to be, combining 18, 19, 20 families at once seems like a real big sudden jump. So personally, my vote was for Plan B, and I urge you to reconsider. And my other question is, are any classrooms completely closed off to the outside in terms of getting fresh air? And how will that work?
Donna, you may be able to answer that question. Not to my knowledge, all of our classrooms, in my mind, have some type of window or unit. Go ahead, Donna, sorry.
Right, all of the classrooms do have windows and univentilators to allow for fresh air to enter the classrooms. So we don't have any interior space classrooms.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you, Kristen. Next up is Joe Maselli. Joe, good evening.
Hi, Mr. Einstein and Dr. Varley and everyone else in the Board of Ed. I'm a teacher of mathematics at Governor Livingston. My question to you is, I was reading the plan about if a student or teacher tests positive, then that entire class would be quarantined. And in an elementary school, that would affect 24, 25 people. At the high school level or the middle school level, how does that work? If a student in my first period class tests positive, that whole class would need to quarantine for 14 days. I would need to quarantine for 14 days. I would assume every teacher that student had would have to quarantine for 14 days. Would all the other students they meet in their other classes have to quarantine for 14 days? Would classes for this, student A's teachers, all of their students have to quarantine because now they have been exposed to that teacher? Like, how far does it go? I feel like very quickly that web expands because of the way the high school schedule works. Even in the course of, a 24-hour period, I interact with, 150 people. So what's our process for quarantining that?
So you basically have it correct. If Jimmy in your first period class tests positive for COVID-19, then you and that entire class would have to quarantine. And then anyone that Jimmy came in contact with would have to quarantine. Now, if someone else came in contact with Jimmy, and then they would not, someone who came in contact with the second person would not have to quarantine because that's a contact of a contact. And we have gone through multiple scenarios with the Department of Health, and only contacts are the ones that have to quarantine. Contacts of contacts do not have to quarantine.
This is still over 100 people easily.
It's a great amount. It's a large number. Absolutely, I agree with you.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not.
Yeah, I know. I just mathematically, it blows my mind how many interactions we have a day. Like I have 2 kids, they're in elementary school. They have, a 30-person cluster. If that happened to them, those 30 people, but like at the high school level, we see so many people and just the interactions in the hallway. Like, how do we trace that? Like,
yeah,
it's
great questions.
Okay. Just wanted to bring that up. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you all for everything you're doing.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Next up is Amy Raddick. Amy, good evening.
Hi, good evening. Thank you all for all the work that you're putting into making our schools safe for our kids. I have a rising 11th grader at GL, and my question, I think, is a continuation of something that was asked to Mr. McKinney earlier regarding, if you need to go to virtual learning or virtual learning in general. Based on the experience from the spring, say that your child has, let's talk about the 5 major classes, 4 majors and a language. In our experience, 3 of those teachers did an excellent job. They were interacting with the students on a regular basis. My student got a lot out of the material, but there were two teachers who, one who was never seen from March 12th or whatever day we went online to the end. And the other one who posted YouTube videos and also was not really interacting with the kids. So can you just talk a little bit more about how you are addressing that issue so that all the teachers have to at least once a week have some face-to-face interaction if we end up at all virtual, or even for the people who choose virtual at the beginning, Plan C? Thank you.
Sure. What we've begun our process of building is that expectation for all of our teachers at all the different levels. And that will be building based, well, more than building based, it'll be developed as age appropriate across grade levels and across schools and across content areas. So those expectations, as we have time to plan, as opposed to in the spring where we kind of launched this and made the best of a terrible situation, we are building that criteria of expectations of that direct interaction and what that will look like. And again, we will focus, on best practices. Doesn't mean that it'll be full direct instruction via Zoom lectures. It'll be a combination of videos and guided practice and independent work. But the direct, we know the best practice and what we learned through being thrown into the fire was that the direct interaction between teachers and students was critical to having a successful situation. So to answer your question, we are fully aware of that, and we are currently building those expectations and involving, the district administration to establish those expectations, and then following that up with additional teacher training and professional development so the teachers are able to meet those expectations.
Okay, and I have one additional question sort of related to that.
Sure.
Just a suggestion at the beginning of the school year, if every teacher, GL may be different because the kids are older and the way they interact with the teachers is different than the younger children, but can every teacher be sure to make it clear how they expect the students in their classroom to communicate with them through Google Classroom, through email, what the expectation is for response time, because that was, again, uneven across, different teachers. And I think just defining that expectation up front would go a long way to lessening the stress when the kids are virtual.
No, and I agree with you. And one of the things that we are also working on in conjunction with that is a guide for students and parents on how to be successful in a remote learning environment. And that goes to the ways we communicate with each other. How do we utilize Google Classroom? What's the expectation when we log on for interacting in a virtual world? So that will be communicated to both, students and parents so that we have those parameters so that we're all kind of on that same page as far as here's the way we're going to communicate, and here's the things that we believe will help you be the most successful in this unique environment.
Okay, and one last thing, what at Governor Livingston, as an example, what are, I missed the beginning of the meeting, so what are the plans for, maybe you talked about this already, what are the plans for after the kids, if they come in person, once they get home, are the afternoons for club meetings and one-on-one with the teachers, and is that your plan? Or how are you going to use that time?
Yes, that time will be, there will be specific times and teachers will be directly available, and that's a two-way street. It will be scheduled, so it'll be very clear to both the students and the teachers when they're available for that direct interaction, and that will be on a daily basis. And that's, as I said, it's a two-way street. So that could be a student saying, I need some help, but it also can be a teacher saying, today I need to meet with, this small group of students, and we're going to do a reteaching, based upon feedback in the classroom and those types of things.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sure.
Great, thank you. Next is Rachel Krimkow. Rachel, good evening.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Good evening, Rachel.
Good evening. Thank you guys for taking the time to speak with everybody. My question is regards with Plan B. I really like that Plan A is consistent in having the kids in school every day. I have a rising kindergartner for MKM. I was just wondering if since a lot of people are asking about Plan B and having the classroom size be smaller for safety purposes, if there was an option for Plan B where we could still have the children in school every week. So for instance, like 3 days in school or 2 days in school, but alternating days, so that way it also factors in the safety issue.
So we wouldn't be able to manage that situation. We need to know, like I said in the presentation, by August 17th, we need to know how many kids are in each classroom so that we may be able to space them out appropriately. So if we had children popping in and out, it'd be a logistical nightmare for us to be able to plan for those students. So it would be either A or C would be the choices.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you. Next is Courtney Bolden. Courtney, good evening.
Hi, thank you guys so much for all of the work that you're doing. I know it's tough to be the recipient of all the criticism and the ideas and all of that stuff, but I appreciate, your team approach. So my concern is more about what happens later on in the fall in the event that schools do need to be closed. I agree that consistency is important for the kids. I've got a rising 10th grader at GL who, it was rough. I think it was rough for everybody probably, but it was really hard. And I know that the in-person interaction is very important for her development. But at the same time, of course, I'm concerned about her safety. She's got, my husband was on a ventilator 18 months ago. We've got his parents who are both over, I think both over 75. And really we're the only people who we interact with, but her going out to school and coming back exposes us to a level of risk that's unavoidable, but I think necessary for her development. I'm concerned, though, I think, like I'm hearing from everybody about the full capacity, about having too many kids and the lack of social distancing. But I'm also concerned that on the other side, we're surrounded by states where COVID cases are rising. And the reality is that it's likely that New Jersey is at some point going to experience another peak because we don't have closed borders between other states. So, it's an obvious possibility that schools can close again. And I'm wondering how you're judging the safety of keeping schools open as conditions change. What objective measures are you, are you guys going to be using as we move forward to make sure that whether schools are open, on a particular day is based on the evidence and safety criteria and not on, whatever the politics of the day are, or on concern about, I'm not accusing you of anything, but, saving face or wanting to be right or anything like that. So I'm wondering kind of what standard you're using about safety going forward.
So I'm in constant communication with the Department of Health. Anytime a school-aged child, even when we're out of school, as we have been, and we've been remote learning, has contracts COVID-19, I get a phone call. And so I'm definitely in contact with them. We would only close school using data. It's not something that we would take lightly, but also we do have to make sure we care for the health of our students as well as our staff. So we would look at data, and then we would have to make a swift decision. And I know I saw someone in the chat asked about would you be given notice? And the answer is no. Like if we're told to shut down, we shut down. And based on the data, we have to do what we have to do for the health of our students and staff.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Next is Amy Coviello. Amy, good evening.
Hi. I have two questions. I have a rising 6th grader, a 9th grader, and an out-of-district 12th grader. And one question is, if we go with A, can a family choose different options for kids in the same family? Because I have 2 kids in district who are very different, have different personalities and different levels of anxiety over safety. So I was wondering, within a family, if one kid wants to go to school and one kid prefers to do remote, is that a possibility?
Yes, you will. As of right now, we have a draft form right now. You fill out a form for each of your children.
Okay. My second question is, when this all came out and it talked about you can choose remote instruction, my assumption was that it would be something I've seen described as other schools around the country as roomers versus Zoomers. So I assumed a teacher would be teaching and would have a computer like this for the remote students to access, and then the classroom would be there. But looking at the presentation a little more closely, it's more specified under Plan B. It says students in the off week or students doing remote would be learning virtually through some type of live interaction. And earlier tonight, in some of the questions, I know it was referred to HIPAA and maybe FERPA, that there might be reasons why the remote students are not going to be linked into the live classroom. And I've heard some other parents asking questions, some teachers doing purely remote and some teachers doing purely in class. So I was a little confused about what our options are.
And right now we are fleshing out those details. Live streaming is not off the table. It is just making sure we have, first of all, the materials to do it, the cameras, everything we need. I know we are looking into ordering tripods and items like that. But also some of our students don't learn that way. And so we would have to do some small group instructions using Zoom. So it's kind of, I can't make a widespread answer that yes, we're going to live stream. In some classes, we will live stream. And in other classes, we are going to have to maneuver in a different manner. I will say that the option of having a remote teacher who only teaches remote and one who teaches live instruction doesn't give the consistency that we need. And so we do need teachers to be teaching the same thing. Right. So we would look at some type of video aspect.
Okay, and is there a FERPA issue with a teacher live streaming with kids in the class and also having remote students logging in? Was that
so the way I have discussed this with our attorney, okay. There isn't, if we can only show the teacher or the teacher's voice. So the way some of the superintendents I've been talking to in Chatham and Madison and Summit, they are live streaming just the whiteboard, and that works in the older classrooms, but right. The classrooms with older children, but the classrooms with the younger children, there's a lot of movement and sometimes centers. And so we're trying to work at the kinks out of that. Like, how do we live stream and not get the kids in the picture?
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Great, thank you, Amy. Next up is Kathleen. Oops. is Kathleen Boreal. Kathleen, you can unmute.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Good evening, Kathleen.
Hi, thank you all for your time and attention to creating solutions to this difficult situation, especially because it's always changing. I have three quick questions. We talked a lot about social distancing and particularly the time to use facial coverings when we cannot maintain social distancing. My first question is, there are students who may not be able to use the face masks for underlying health reasons, and they will be given face shields. Will you be taking into consideration, if a student is using face shield, making sure that there is at least 6 feet social distancing, because a face shield is not the same coverage provided as a mask?
Yes, we have taken that into consideration.
Okay. The second thing is that we talked a long time ago, at the early start of this, about doing temperature checks before the children would be going to school, and then having the parents go through some other questions perhaps, or just making sure that they were looking at they had not been out of the state in hotspots. But since there is such a change in even what states we need to quarantine and what things are changing all the time, will there be some mechanism sent to the parents so we're consistent on all of us making sure that we are answering the same questions for everybody going into the school?
So we are in the process of coming up with a student handbook for COVID, a teacher handbook for COVID, and a parent handbook for COVID. And that is just one of the aspects that we're working on to make sure that we are consistent in temperature checks, questions, making sure that people report when they've traveled to one of the hot spots, which, like you said, is a growing list. Every week it gets larger.
Right, and what is now may not be next month, or so I know that will be very difficult to continue to navigate. And then the last quick thing is piggybacking on, I think, what Amy said about meeting expectations and helping with consistency and minimizing confusion with standardizing the method of communication. Is there a way to kind of have one method so that all faculty will be using the same platform or the same method, so that it's not, this teacher prefers this method and this teacher prefers this method, because that just may add to the confusion, even if it's known up front. Is there one preferred method across the school?
So not really. Like, I will say we do leave the art of teaching up to the teacher. We will require some live interaction. So there will be some method. Most of our teachers use Google Classroom or Zoom. You can pretty much count that those two will be the methods of live interaction for your child.
Because that was one of the things that we found from I teach college, from surveying the students, was that it was very confusing. And again, everybody had to change on a dime for the spring in understanding how to connect with their faculty. And so I don't know for some of the other students if that was a concern at any other of the younger levels. But thank you.
Great, Kathleen. Thank you very much. Stacy Saravey. Stacy, good evening.
Good evening. Thanks so much for giving me the chance to speak tonight. I just wanted to say I appreciate how much thinking and planning goes into this very, very uncertain environment. And so my question actually relates to that. It's about the survey that we've been talking about, since it seems to have played a part in the decision-making about whether we're going to go with Plan A or Plan B. And I'm not sure that we've been actually talking about the survey properly. From your presentation materials, it doesn't say that actually 68% of parents chose Plan A. Rather, it says 68% of our families stated they would send their children back to school with Plan A. And then 32% who would not send their child to school, I'm sorry, of the 32% who would not send their child to school, 40% said they still wouldn't send their children to school for Plan B, which means that 60% of that 32% would go for Plan B. So I think we have to be careful when we talk about this survey, because it definitely went into decision making. And from what I can tell from your materials, it's not that 68% of parents chose Plan A. They just said they would go to school if there were a Plan A. And not being a parent, being a teacher in the schools, I didn't see whether there actually was a survey that gave parents a choice between Plan A and Plan B as well. And I don't know that we've seen that data. And I was wondering if that data exists. Is there actually, are there actually numbers for this group of parents, this many parents preferred Plan A and this many parents preferred Plan B? Because we don't see that in your materials.
No, that data is not there. Our main goal in the survey was finding out how many parents would choose as their priority Plan A, Plan B, or Plan C. And once we got the data that 68% would send their children to school with Plan A, and then there was a large amount of parents who would not send their kids to school in any form or fashion, we used that to then figure out how, if we could possibly space children out, and what made the most sense for our students and our staff moving forward. To mitigate the risk. No matter what, coming in person, no matter what, we are still going to have risk involved.
No, I totally understand that. I think we just need to be careful about saying parents chose Plan A, because that's not what the survey tested. What the survey tested is how many parents would send their children to school if Plan A were adopted. So I just want to make sure that we're careful about that as we speak about choices during the meeting, especially if the survey was a big factor in choosing between Plan A and Plan B.
Thank you.
Sure.
Great, thank you, Stacy.
Sure, thank you.
Thanks. Next up is Liz Kane. Liz, good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, everybody, for all your time. I'll try to keep it brief because I know how late it is. I appreciate all the time and effort you've been putting into this. Mike, I have a quick question, though. It looks like, maybe I'm reading it wrong, that all the students would be in Plans A and B, students would be in the schools just in the mornings. Did you think of possibly staggering it so that maybe middle school and high school are going to school like physically in the buildings in the afternoons instead, and then therefore giving you more room maybe to spread out the elementary and early childhood centered students, or changing things up somehow that way so that those upper class.
We did look into different times for different grade levels. As doing some quick tests with parents and reaching out to and ask some questions about that, it created another problem. When you have high school and middle school kids who have siblings who are then going to stay at home after school and help their younger siblings with the remote learning that happens in the afternoon, we create another childcare problem. So we did look at that. We looked, not that specifically, but we looked at staggering schedules, and we found that it would just create another problem.
Thank you.
Great, thanks, Liz. Next up is Shana Hopek. Shana?
Oh, good evening, and I just want to express my appreciation to the board and the administration for the tireless amount of time that you spent on trying to get this right for everybody. I have two questions. The first one, Dr. Varley, I know that you have children, and I'm just curious if you needed to pick one of these choices for your children in Berkeley Heights, which one would you choose, and could you share why?
So I will definitely, my children they go to Chatham schools, and Chatham is using this exact same plan. And I have already they sent out your notice of intent at the beginning of this week, and I have already sent to them that I would definitely be sending my children back for half days, no lunch, all in. And my reasoning behind that is because I feel like mental health trumps COVID. And in my discussions with all the Department of Health officials that I speak with, there are no instances in our local areas of students who have symptomatic COVID-19. There are, however, children who are experiencing depression, anxiety, attempted suicides, some being successful. And there are things we can come back from with COVID-19, but there are things we cannot come back with other issues. So I will absolutely send my children to Chatham if the governor does not change his mind.
Thank you for that answer. And my second question you answered in your first question, which was really around the social risk around children not returning. I have a high school junior, and I know that the last 6 months have been really rough, and she needs that socialization because she's starting to pull back because she isn't with her friends as much as she has been. So thank you.
You're welcome. I spoke with a parent yesterday who has had to put his daughter in a facility because of all the anxiety and the depression surrounding the pandemic.
Great. And next, thank you, Shana. Next one is Anna Angelova. You are back. I think we had you before, but maybe lost you. So it looks like you're back now. Anna?
Yes, can you hear me? Yes?
We can hear you, yes.
Yes, I have a question about staffing in the fall. I'm concerned with the vast amount of openings and all the teachers kind of rooting for Plan B. I'm afraid some of them actually will take leave of absence or retire or something. So would you consider giving teachers an option to teach remotely, even if the students are actually in the classrooms at that time?
So no, we would not give them the opportunity to do that. One thing about, we do have to treat all of our staff members equally. And so they all get the same option, which is they have the opportunity to take the CARES Act leave or Family Medical Leave Act. And just so that we can make sure we're providing a solid education for the students who are in person as well as remote.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you, Anna. So that will close out our public citizens hearing this evening. So I counted probably over 50 people who spoke this evening. So to those 50 people who spoke, thank you. I can tell you that hearing the feedback from the community and the concerns, the questions is very helpful for us. Obviously, as all of you acknowledge, we put a great deal of thought into this plan. Doesn't mean that we thought of everything. So I do want to thank all those that that shared questions. I wrote down 8 areas for follow-up that our team will look into, and we will make sure that we get back to the group likely at our next meeting. And those were as follows: to better understand the afternoon experience, understand what lessons plans can be shared, how the submit the temperature will work, access to the materials, backpacks and lockers and totes. Obviously, the more details about Plan C, how will that remote learning work? How will the after school and sports work, sports as an example, and a little bit more about how will the movement in the schools occur. So those are 8. I suspect others of my peers are taking notes as well. There might be more than 8, but those are the 8 that I wrote down, and I will make sure that we have answers to all of those at our next meeting, as well as taking the feedback that we've heard. There were a number of questions in the chat window. A number of them were answered sometimes a person put a question in the chat window and then raised their hand to ask questions, so those were answered. A number of them were also answered along the way. We will be extracting and exporting the chat window comments to make sure that if we missed anything, we will circle back. I saw a couple of questions about grading. There were some other ones about some staff questions. So again, I think we answered the question about collaborating with surrounding districts. So again, I would say, based on my notes, I would say probably half to 3/4 of those questions were answered, at least the ones that were questions were answered already. And again, I'll make sure that we go through those and our team looks at those. As Dr. Varley said, we already have a frequently asked questions document, and to the ones that we think make sense, we'll obviously add those to the FAQs. I don't think we'll have just one set of FAQs. As the weeks go on between now and the beginning of school, we will add to those FAQs, and again, use that as a vehicle to communicate with the community. With that, we now come to the time where the board will have a discussion. So I will open up the floor to any board members that either want to make a comment or ask a question to obviously to our administration.
So I had a question, a couple of questions.
Great.
I had a couple of parents who reached out to me and they wanted me to ask a couple of questions on their behalf. So I know there was a lot of discussion, and it's possible that the questions were answered during the conversation and from some of the feedback from the parents and from Dr. Varley. But I just wanted to clarify one or two things. So how will the one-on-one be administered to students that will need some kind of physical contact? Is there a plan in place for that?
So we are in the process, I think it's on the presentation, where we will be purchasing, and I've spoken with Michelle Gardner about this at length. A lot of our students will need hands-on contact, and not a lot, some of our students will need hands-on contact, and our staff as well as our students will be given the PPE that they need to make sure this happens safely: face shields, masks, gloves, etc., to be able to handle some of these situations so that everyone is safe.
Okay, thank you. And for the students who can't tolerate masks for long periods of time, is there going to be some kind, especially those who will require a one-on-one, will be there some kind of alternative put in place for them, those students?
So we definitely will be doing the face shields as I've talked about earlier. We have looked into some plexiglass situations, other types of ways to keep I don't know the explicit answer to that, but we are investigating how we can handle it for students who are not able to wear a mask.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments or questions from the board?
I have a question. It's Jerry. It's for Melissa. Melissa, we've heard from a number of teachers this evening. A lot around, Plan B and all. I was under the impression that the BHEA was involved in this process all along.
Yes, they have been. Before we started with committees, I have been in contact with Mr. Mcgovern and Mr. O'Sullivan multiple times.
And were they on board with Plan A? I mean,
from my conversations early on, yes, they were on board with Plan A.
Okay, and he's never said to you that he was not at any point?
Not at any time until today.
Okay, thank you.
Other comments or questions from the board?
Doug, I would just like to say I thought this was great. I love the questions, but the one thing that always impresses me is the current and former students. They seem to really have a lot to say, and they present themselves. I can't. There's no words that can describe how well they present themselves. And for me, I'm proud to see them when they're up there, and they never disappoint. So, great job to everyone, and great job to our students.
Great. Any other comments or questions from the board? Okay. Seeing no other comments or questions from the board, I will take a motion to move item 9A, which is the approval of the reopening plan, and what we're voting on is accepting the superintendent's recommendation to go forward with Plan A?
I will move item 9A.
And I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion other than what we've had? Okay, Donna, roll call.
Mrs. Penna?
Yes.
Mr. D'Aquila? Mr. D'Aquila? I can't hear you.
Mike? Mike, do we lose your audio, Mike? We cannot hear you, Mike.
Can't hear you.
All right, we'll come back.
How about now?
Oh, yeah, we got you now.
Sorry, my batteries ran out on headsets. And I was trying to switch between it. So I did want to make a comment. I apologize. I was trying to say this before, so I'm going to say it now.
Okay.
I want to appreciate a lot of the residents, their comments. A lot of the people said, thank you for the hard work. And I want to appreciate and acknowledge a lot of the residents saying, thank you for all the hard work that both the board, the administration, the staff we did to come up with this plan. And I do want to say something that, and I can't remember, I apologize, I didn't write down the name of the resident, asked the superintendent what her decision would be based on her kids. And I want to say why I'm going to be voting and saying yes to Plan A, because I do have 3 kids in the district going into 2nd, 5th, and 6th grade. We had a lot of great experiences during the remote learning. We had some challenges, which the teachers did a great job in addressing, but I also witnessed the social aspects of not being in school. So when asked the question, why am I voting for Plan A, and looking at all the risks, looking at all the different things, how it's being mitigated with everything going on, that is why I'm choosing and accepting Plan A for the decision for the fall. And also with the fact that there is an option that should something come up, should we decide as a parent, my wife and I, that we are not comfortable, that can go to a Plan C or the option C to go remote. So I think it was a great plan to put forward.
Great. Thanks, Mike.
Mr. Joya?
Yes.
Ms. Riley?
This is probably the most difficult decision I've had to make as a board member in 5 years. I also know that, we will ultimately be making this decision in real time. So, I'm going to say yes today.
Mr. Casano?
Yes.
Dr. Christina?
I agree with Chris. I think this is a plan that obviously is not going to meet everyone's needs. However, I think Dr. Varley and her committee has done an excellent job in trying to make the best of a situation that we all agree is not an optimal situation. I believe that she will guarantee the safety of our students. I believe that our students will get an excellent education with our teachers. And in light of that, I am voting.
Mrs. Kirsch?
I will say yes. I too have grandchildren in the system, and we have had discussions within a family and feel that the school will provide the necessary safety precautions for our children, and really feel that being at school is where they should be, but really want to be. I said my granddaughter was here listening for a while, and she just said, I want to go to school, and went off to bed. So I do support this. I do thank everybody that has come together to put these plans together. Yes, it was a lot of work, a lot of concern, and as always, children first. Thank you.
Mr. Reinstein?
Yes. So thank you. So let me just offer 2 final comments. Number 1, Dr. Varley, you have our thanks and gratitude for everything you have done for our district since the day you started here, just over a year ago now. You have walked into a number of challenges. This last one probably being the biggest one, and you and your team have worked tirelessly to put together a plan. As I said earlier, admittedly, there is no perfect model. The residents brought up a number of good things tonight. It is obviously ultimately a parent choice. There are benefits of all the models that you suggested, but you have our heartfelt thanks and gratitude. Yourself, Scott, your administrative team, the 40+ teachers, the parents, everybody else who worked hard. When I said that we do everything as a community together, I truly meant that. And on behalf of the board, I want to thank you and your team for everything that you've done, for everybody sticking around tonight. I think we had at the top slightly over 400 people who participated tonight. As of right now, there's still 250 people who stuck around until 11 o'clock tonight because they care. They care about what we do as a community. They care about what we do to educate their students. And that makes me very proud to be a board member. Makes me proud to work for an organization that really believes and does everything we can to both educate our students as best we can and provide for their safety and security for everybody, and not just the students, the staff, and everybody. So with that, I thank the board for all the work that they've done. We do have another meeting 2 weeks from tonight on August 13th. I will commit that we will answer all the areas that I mentioned previously. I suspect we will have other areas, because even though there weren't areas that people asked about tonight, I can assure you that there are other areas that we're still working on. You know, the conversation I've had with Scott McKinney and with Dr. Varley, we are working through a lot of things, and we will answer as many as we can, and we'll try to draw out that experience as best as we can for you. And again, we'll go through the chat comments. But with that, I will adjourn this meeting tonight. I thank everybody for their patience with us tonight. I thank you for thanking us. That's not lost on us as well. So with that, have a good evening, a good day Friday, and a good weekend. And thanks for joining tonight. Good night.
Great, thank you.